Welcome everybody. Bienvenue tout le monde. Bonsoir toutes et à tous. Merci d'être ici ce soir avec nous. Nous sommes réunis pour vous présenter le plan particulier d'urbanisme, le PPU, du secteur sud-est. Ce projet est le fruit d'un long travail, un travail de réflexion, d'écoute et d'échange avec vous les résidents, les commerçants et partenaires du quartier. Le PPU Sud-Est est maintenant dans une autre phase et nous sommes heureux de partager avec vous. This process began quite a while ago. It started in 2017 with the release of the Agile report, which recommended a clear and coherent vision for this area. Since then, several studies and assessments have been carried out, and in 2023, the Urban Planning Committee supported the creation of the Southeast Special Planning Program, and the City Council formally adopted this direction on July 17th in 2023, about 2 years ago. It's important to note that what we will present this evening is not a construction project, it is not building applications, it's a roadmap. It's a planning tool that will help guide the future development of this area, while respecting its architectural and heritage identity. The Southeast SPP, the PPU, will revitalize this difficult area and help us resolve real issues, particularly around housing and improving the streetscape. What can we do to ensure that younger generations can continue living in our city? What solutions can we offer our growing number of seniors residents who want to continue living in our city in suitable accommodations? Now, more than ever, we need to take action. Together, we are responsible for building a more inclusive, vibrant, and sustainable Southeast. I know that this type of project raises many concerns, raises many questions. It's only natural. Throughout this process, your ideas, concerns, and comments have been considered, but I repeat, this is just a vision. Regardless of the projects that come to realization in this sector, they will all be subject to the same vigorous and rigorous analysis process by the city to ensure that they respect the image and identity of our community. Once again, I want to thank you for participating in this evening and for those of you who have participated along this very long process. I now would like to hand it over to Conrad Peart, Councillor Peart, who's going to say a few opening words, and then the urban planning team will present the project. I did ask for that picture to be taken down. But, and the presentation will be quite long, so if you do need to get something before the presentation starts, I would suggest that you do it soon. Maybe you should do that. Don't. Monsieur Peart, Councillor Peart.
Thank you. Welcome, bienvenue. We've asked a lot of you for the last year and a half.
Is your mic on?
I don't know. Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay, so it is on, indeed.
Now it is. Fixed it.
Closer. How was that? Good, good. We've asked a lot of you in the last year and a half. It's been a big deal. It's been a big deal for you. It's been a big deal for us, and it's been a big deal for all the stakeholders involved. I'll start maybe just by rereading a quote from the 1960 report, the John Bland report. It's a quote that I feel that it's as apt then as it is today, but there are things in there in the report that were, let's just say, less successful. But it begins by saying, as a city grows, it needs reorganization. As it ages, parts become outworn and have to be replaced. As the conditions of life within a city change, so must the city change to match them. And as the standards and values of the inhabitants alter, so must the city alter to accommodate them. And I'll do it in French. I didn't translate this myself, but lorsqu'une ville grandit, elle a besoin d'être réorganisée. Au fur et à mesure qu'elle vieillit, certaines parties deviennent obsolètes et doivent être remplacées. Au fur et à mesure que les conditions de vie au sein de la ville changent, la ville doit changer pour s'y adapter. Et lorsque les nombres et les valeurs des habitants changent, la ville doit aussi changer pour s'y adapter. In 2011, Westmount was designated as a National Historic Site of Canada. It is defined by its architectural and landscaped heritage reminiscent of the period between 1890 and 1930. Oh, they did do it, thank you. And this is an honor that is dear, I think, to many of you Westmounters, as it is to me. Now, I like maps. And so I wondered, what did Westmount look like at the end of 1930? So I put it on a map. And I was pretty impressed. And what I also discovered was by the end of 1930, about 80% of the land or the territory of Westmount had been developed. So the remainder is in the last, let's just call it 100 years or so. So 80, 20. So and of that 80%, and what's not shown here is that the overwhelming majority of that was built between 1890 and 1930. So that is what Parks Canada defines as the character, as the backbone of the city. And it persists today, and it represents the overwhelming majority of what is Westmount today. Now, by now, I think many of you know what happened in the 60s. Misguided by the Bland report, there was a wholesale demolition of a large segment of the southeast sector, where over 140 properties, houses, businesses, services were demolished wholesale. I believe the thinking at the time was the metropolis was going to grow to 8 million, I think was the number I read somewhere. And at the time, the city was already growing at a pretty good clip. I think the 1956 census was around 26,000, and then by 1559, it was approaching 30,000. So there were a lot of people already here in Westmount at that time of the Bland report. But also at that same time, 1960, as you know, the metro was not built. The DeCarry interchange, the DeCarry Expressway was not built. The Ville Marie was not built. And in this same report, they proposed, or they anticipated that the car was going to need a lot of space, a lot of space for parking, a lot of space for getting through the city, across the city, and proposed some large, let's just call them large arteries through the south end of the city. And what was originally proposed, thankfully never came to pass, was an additional boulevard which would have basically decimated the southern portion of the city, which is above the fillets. That did not happen, but what did happen, though, was the demolition above Dorchester. Dorchester used to be a local street. Dorchester used to be a 40-foot wide street. 40 feet, it is narrow. Narrower than was Tupper of the time, which was 60 feet wide. Narrower than Clandeboye, which was 55 feet wide. It was a very local street, and that explains, to me at least, the type of housing that we see that's still today, thankfully, on the south side of the street. It is compact, it is many people like to say human scale, it is intimate. But that was on a street that was 40 feet wide. After the intervention in the 1960s, that 40 feet became 90 feet. 90 feet, more than twice the size. So the complete, le gabarit, the frame, la trame, changed, I won't say overnight, but in a very short time. And that changed the area into what we see today, almost 60 years later. Another observation, and again, I was looking back at old maps, was in that block on Dorchester, because Dorchester took the biggest hit. In that block between Green and Gladstone, there used to be 13 lots. Those 13 lots are now one lot. In the block between Gladstone and Atwater, there were 27 lots. Those 27 lots are now 2 lots. Those lots became parking lots. Those parking lots persisted over 60 years, and they are still there today. So here we are today, facing the harsh consequences of that decision. And over the past few decades, there have been many more reports, many more studies. They filled the shelves. They haven't been enacted. Now, I think, is the time to act. It won't be easy. Now, I'd like to maybe make a little bit of a acknowledgement to the residents of District 8, to Councillor Kez, the representative from District 8, and other neighbors nearby. And what I do want to say is, this isn't fair. This isn't your doing. And I understand why many of you would react with discomfort and concern, because we are asking a lot of you. As I said before, the remaining 20% of Westmount was developed over 100 years. What we're suggesting is development compressed into a 10-year framework. That's a lot. That's intense. That's a lot of change all at once in one place. I get that. So what we're asking for today is a bit of a leap of faith. Now, I also want to reassure you that what you will see tonight is familiar to Westmount. Sorry. Me right here, I'll put it right in. What I want to try to reassure you of today is what you will see later on is familiar to Westmount. C'est pas de nouveau. Okay, I will. Okay, a little closer than most, but here we go. What I want to try to assure you is tonight, what you will see is familiar to Westmount. Familiar to Westmount. We already have buildings that are taller, higher, like Westmount Square. Sorry, taller and wider, like Westmount Square. We already have buildings that are 6 to 12 stories along de Maisonneuve. We already have 7 stories along Sherbrooke. All of this on streets that are narrower than Dorchester. What we are proposing is Westmount. Ce que nous proposons, c'est Westmount. It is the same Westmount that was built over 100 years, but like I said before, unfortunately, we have to compress that into a much shorter time frame. Now, I guess that maybe a few of you in the room have seen the inertia that's happened over the last 60 years, but all of us have witnessed the decline that's happened in the last 10. Now, for all the right reasons, we've tried different solutions or proposed different solutions over the years. They haven't worked. We've lived it. We've run the experiment. It hasn't worked. A lot has changed. We need to change with it. As much as some would like, we can't turn back time. Nous ne pouvons pas revenir en arrière. I think in this proposal today, there's a little something for everyone. It's not perfect, but it's actionable. If you rent and want to make your first purchase, there is something here for you. If you own but want to downsize to something smaller, close to services, there is something here for you. If you want taxes to rise more slowly, there is something here for you. If you want to feel safe in your own city, there is something here for you. Now, the graphic you see on the screen is something that I often refer back to. It's a bit of my touchstone in my time on council, because a lot about urban planning involves trade-offs. And this graphic kind of captures a lot of the trade-offs. You can pick 2. You can't have all 3. We can't get it all. We can't prescribe the future, but we can prepare for the possibilities. So tonight, I look forward to hearing from you, to hearing your reactions, and to have a lively discussion. Now, I just was slid a paper to remind me that I should, because this came in quite recently, where to add it, sorry. I do. Yeah, there we go, right there in front of me. The CCU, the Comité Consultatif d'Urbanisme, or the PAC as referred to it in English, the Planning Advisory Committee, has sent their memoir, their brief, in support of the proposal. They've reviewed it recently, and they have this to say. It is written in French only, so I will only read it in French. I suspect we'll be able to make an English version available at some point in time. Le CCU de Westmount accorde son appui unanime au PPU du Sud-Est tel que proposé dans sa dernière version. C'est la version de 2025, le 25 mai. Cette proposition amendée répond de façon réaliste et exemplaire aux nombreux points soulevés lors des consultations publiques et des préoccupations globales du CCU. Le CCU note les possibilités du développement respectueux de cette zone péricentrale en offrant de nouveaux espaces publics bien adaptés, des designs innovants de rues, l'intégration d'une densité accrue en hauteur qui permet l'augmentation des logements tout en maintenant l'échelle humaine au niveau des rues du secteur. Ce projet vise l'intégration respectueuse de l'architecture future en harmonie avec le patrimoine bâti du secteur et la nature singulière de l'environnement de Westmount. Puis c'est signé par tous les membres du comité consultatif de Westmount. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Conseiller Peart. Thank you for your commentary. And now we are going to start the presentation avec Monsieur No de notre département d'aménagement urbain. And so many of you may have had an opportunity to look at the documents that have been posted on Engage Westmount since I think it was May 27th, which is a revised plan for what had been posted in November. For those of you who haven't, we will walk through some of the key points on this. And I know many of you have come because you're very opposed to the project, or some of you have come because you're very much in favor. And perhaps there's some in the room that don't have an opinion at all. But I hope that you look at this with open eyes, and there's a lot of detail in this, so it is a bit of the presentation will take a few minutes, but I just want to hand it over to Urban Planning and thank them for their work on this. Donc, merci beaucoup. Monsieur No, c'est à vous.
Merci, Madam Mayor. Hello, everyone. My name is Frédéric No. I'm the director of the Urban Planning Department. Along with my colleague, Janie Poupard, we are delighted to present the final SPP for Southeast Westmount. After 18 months, a year and a half of collective participation, collaboration between various stakeholders, and countless discussion with the firm LeMay, we now have mature and comprehensive strategic planning vision. The decision to adopt an SPP for the Southeast was not made randomly or spontaneously. As Madam Mayor said previously, back in 2017, a professional report recommended the adoption of an SPP for the area. More recently, property owners in the area approached the Urban Planning Department to propose redevelopment plans. Almost without exception, these projects did not comply with the current regulation. Worse still, the only project that was approved in the area recently, which included the demolition of the existing building and the reconstruction of a building that met those current standards, did not materialize. As a result, the owner preferred to lose $1.4 million security deposit that the city had required. That is the situation in the Southeast now. Faced with this need for improvement, the Council opted for a proven, transparent, and professional solution. Tonight's presentation aims to share with you the outcome of this tremendous collective effort of which you are a part. So let's start with un retour sur les principes directeurs, nos obligations en tant que membre, Westmount, membre de la communauté métropolitaine de Montréal. From Mirabel to Mont-Saint-Hilaire, to l'Assomption, to Hudson, this is all CMM. La CMM, un des rôles principaux qu'elle a, est de planifier, prévoir l'aménagement du territoire de cette région métropolitaine. Bien sûr, Westmount en fait partie. Le 9 juin dernier, so 10 days ago, the CMM adopted its reviewed PMAD, which is the Plan métropolitain d'aménagement et de développement. This is the second version. The first one was adopted back in 2012, and now the first adoption was made. This means that every MRC, Municipalité Régionale de Comté in the suburbs, plus the agglomération de Longueuil, Laval, and the agglomération de Montréal, which we are part of, must comply with the threshold of the requirement of density and other land use requirements. C'est maintenant officiel. La seconde version est adoptée, est en cours d'être adoptée au final. Un des requis en termes d'aménagement du territoire dans le PMAD révisé est l'atteinte de seuils de densité. C'est très variable selon le contexte. Les endroits où la densité requise est la plus élevée se situent dans ce qu'on appelle les TOD. It's an English term. It means Transit-Oriented Developments. TODs are located around transportation nodes like metro stations, train stations, even incitative parkings in the suburbs. We do have Atwater Metro Station that is in the southeast area. This TOD is among the highest density requirement for the Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal. They call it an hyper-center TOD. So this is the central core of the metropolitan area that goes roughly from Atwater to Berry-UQAM on the orange and green lines. I will come back later with the requirement, the thresholds that are required, and I will explain how it's incorporated in this PPU. So this is, I would say, our obligation as member of the CMM to comply with the new PMAD recently adopted and with the Schéma d'aménagement et de développement of the agglomeration of Montreal that is under review because of the adoption of the PMAD. Let's remember what is a plan particulier d'urbanisme, PPU or SPP. C'est un outil stratégique de prise de décision. C'est un outil de planification qui est prévu dans la loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme. Donc, c'est un document formel, encadré dans une loi, qui est un outil facultatif. Contrairement à un plan d'urbanisme ou un planning program that every municipality must have. Un PPU est un outil facultatif qu'une ville peut adopter lorsqu'un secteur fait face à des enjeux particuliers en termes d'aménagement du territoire. S'il y a un consensus ici, c'est certainement que le Sud-Est fait face à des enjeux particuliers. Il s'agit donc certainement du meilleur outil disponible. L'adoption d'un PPU, the process to adopt a PPU, is different from a regular zoning or urban planning bylaw. This is based on a collective, established vision. In our case, we can say this is based on 2024, where there was a lot of consultation process that I will show you in the next slide. Because of this collectively established vision, consultation, the process of adoption is not subject to population approval. It is replaced by all the consultation process that was made in the year 2024. It includes a site analysis, a vision, orientation, and design concept and guidelines, and an implementation plan. It's like a small planning program into the official planning program. So for tonight, we will review the process and the results of the public consultation. We will present the detailed development plan of the sector and its components. We'll also present the regulatory concordance bylaw supporting the SPP. And finally, we will gather your comments and answer your question at the end of this assembly. So this is, as you know, Southeast. It includes Dawson, Alexignon, and a stretch of St. Catherine between Dorchester and St. Catherine, and Atwater to the east, and the RCMP building to the west. As I said previously, there's a metro station that is located at the fringe of this area. This makes Southeast part of a TOD, hyper-centered TOD. Because of that, and because we are part of the CMM, we must comply with the requirement, the density thresholds that are required for the members of the CMM. Now let's go have a walk in Southeast. This is a place that you certainly all know. We can say this is a disparate area. There's a mix of heritage buildings, office buildings like RCMP and the 1100 Atwater, empty lots, and the city is owner of those empty lots, and decaying properties as well. So this is truly disparate. Yeah, so the picture says it all. This is a place that we don't have to explain a lot. This is how it is now, and we do not talk about the social situation also that is very sensitive in the area. This slide is not the most beautiful, but it's an important one. I'm going more into details about the requirements of density that I'm talking since the beginning. The density, the TOD, so what is the Oui, monsieur? No, questions are in the end. Yeah.
Un, deux. Okay. Merci beaucoup.
Les questions sont à la fin, monsieur.
Is it going to be like this the whole night, or?
On va avoir des questions après.
Merci, monsieur. Merci.
What are the suggestions? Like, it's really good suggestions.
On va prendre des suggestions et des questions après.
OK. So as I said, this slide is very important for all of us to understand the requirement, what we are subject to as part of the CMM. This is, a third is a 500-meter radius around the transportation node. In this case, the Atwater Metro Station. All of the southeast is part of this stud, and it's a circle, so it also goes beyond the line, the limits of what we call southeast. However, the calculation to reach the density that is required, in this case, it's a requirement of 480 units by hectare. That's the way the CMM and the agglomeration measure this density. How many units by hectare? In this case, it's 480. Does it include the existing density or the existing the units? The answer is no. This is a tool, the PMAP, that is made for the future, from now to the next couple of maybe decades. So the calculation is made in the third only for the vacant lot and only for the properties to be redeveloped. This is the basis on what we calculate the density. We do have now we have 3 vacant lots. We have the 2 upper lots along Dorchester, and since a couple of years after the demolition of the 14, I believe, St. Catherine, we now have 3 empty lots. So those are automatically included as part of the calculation. The properties to be redeveloped are the properties that are in a state of decay or unused or some situation that is not suitable. We do have identified 5 properties that are all located south of St. Catherine. So with the empty lot, all the other building that goes from the corner of Atwater up to the Bureau en Gros building, those are properties to be redeveloped. There's also the Reddy Memorial, that is a building that is facing some issues, asbestos, and well, it's not well maintained, so this is also part of it. And finally, the garage structure of the office building that is on Atwater. So not the office building itself, but there's a garage structure that is half underground, half below ground, that is considered as to be redeveloped. So the calculation is for all the area that is comprised in the red line. This is where we must reach the 480 units by hectare. This is the true situation. We'll come back. Now, we said that it's an 18-month process. C'est un processus qui dure depuis 18 mois, 1 an et demi. Dès le départ, je me souviens très bien que le conseil municipal, avant de lancer l'appel d'offres et de dégager les fonds pour le mandat, a demandé à l'administration de faire en sorte que l'appel d'offres inclut un maximum de consultations publiques. Il existe un minimum dans la loi, mais le conseil a souhaité un maximum. C'est un peu ce qui est représenté ici, on this timeline. Donc, ça a commencé en 2024, janvier 2024. Il y a eu l'hiver a été une période de démarchage, donc les premières étapes avec la firme retenue. Et dès le mois d'avril, s'est lancée une ronde de consultation, participation populaire variée. Et je les nomme les ateliers de vision ou Vision Workshops, that were made with the elected official and also with the stakeholders or the owners of the properties in the area. There was a broad survey that was made throughout the municipality for all residents. There was a lot of a response from this survey. The first public consultation was made exactly here, almost a year ago exactly. It was in June of 2024. And that was the first time where everybody participated, were allowed to participate. It was a workshop. It was pretty much a blank page where people gave the idea, what they see, but with nothing concrete yet realized. From this first public consultation, and including all the workshop with the stakeholders and the elected official and the survey, the end of the summer up to October was the design of the preliminary concept for the firm and for the administration. When that was made, so there was adjustment from... on a concrétisé la vision qui a été exprimée lors du sondage et des ateliers de participation. Cette période entre juillet, août et novembre 2024 a permis de préparer un premier concept complet qui vous a été présenté en novembre de l'année dernière. C'était la deuxième consultation publique, toujours ici. À ce moment-là, on avait un draft. On avait déjà une première version qui vous était proposée. Et de cette version-là, nous avons eu beaucoup de feedback, beaucoup de commentaires, ce qui a mené à l'élaboration du concept final cet hiver. Et that's where we are now. First adoption at the end of May and the Assemblée de consultation, which is now. Voici les chiffres relatifs à la consultation publique. Beaucoup d'informations. Chaque participation publique en juin et en novembre 2024 ont attiré plus de 100 participants. Près de 400 réponses au sondage qui a été lancé à l'été 2024. 16 partenaires stratégiques qui incluent les stakeholders, les propriétaires, des organismes et autres parties prenantes d'intérêt. Et tout près de 500 idées partagées là, au final. Donc, c'était un bon résultat qui nous permettait d'avoir des données intéressantes pour produire les concepts. I was mentioning you that between the first public consultation in June and the second between the consultation in November and the one that was recently adopted in May, there was other modifications that were made. So what people saw until the end of May was the November presentation. But there are changes. C'est très résumé ici, mais c'est les main concept changes that we have here. First of all, the intersection Clark-Dorchester. There was a proposition to close the southern part of the intersection, the Dorchester Boulevard part, to create a bigger park that is located between Westmont High School and the RCMP building. There was a suggestion to make this a complete and free of cars park. This was this was appreciated for some, but maybe not for the most. So this was finally conserved as a full intersection. However, the width of Dorchester Boulevard is proposed to be reduced. Now it's a boulevard. It's like an on-ramp for a freeway with this asphalt, and it will be reduced as a two-lane road. But this is one big change. Also, what we call Place Gladstone or Gladstone Plaza, it sure would have another name at the end, but this public space that was first proposed at the intersection of Dorchester and obviously Gladstone on the upper lot, one of the upper lots, was reduced and relocated. So it was reduced for a more intimate and calmer atmosphere with a more vegetal landscape and adding of a residential building at the corner of Gladstone and Dorchester. You will see renderings of what it could look like later. Also, we've included the Reddy Memorial Hospital site as a redevelopment scenario. That was not really considered at the first proposition, but it's right in the middle of the sector, so it should be addressed. Maybe it's long-term, it's a governmental property, but we've now addressed this location as a redevelopment plan. Le cadre bâti. Nous avons modifié la modification des hauteurs des tours pour redistribuer la densité sur la rue Sainte-Catherine et nous avons révisé le traitement volumétrique à l'intersection Atwater. Et par conséquent, il y a une diminution des hauteurs pour les bâtiments proposés le long de Dorchester. There was a lot of concerns during the November consultation where some people believe that the proposed height along Dorchester for the new building were too high. It was proposed to be 10 floor at the November proposition, but it was not popular. So it's been reduced to a maximum of 7-story building. We will show you the details. It's not a monolithic 7-story building, but there's a volumetry that is considered to address the proximity to the building south side of Dorchester. And this modification of density distribution is a balance, because remember, we must maintain a threshold of 480 units by hectare for all the sectors. So if we remove some height somewhere, we must put them somewhere else. So the idea was to lower Dorchester and to add a little bit more floors on St. Catherine, where there was consensus, I would say, or very big acceptability regarding height on Dorchester, on St. Catherine. However, on St. Catherine, we were concerned about the comments from the Atwater Library, where there was at first an idea of a building at the corner that will be 25-story high. It's been reduced to 20-story high. The same then it will be along all of St. Catherine. And finally, there's a item for the équipement collectif or collective facility. We have a final selection of potential sites. So we'll come back again concerning collective facility, but we now have two possible sites for this collective equipment. Je cède maintenant la parole à Madame Janie Poupard pour vous présenter la vision et principes directeurs. Voilà.
Okay. So, based on the site analysis and the first collaborative workshop that was held as part of the process, the starting point of developing a revitalization plan is to adopt a vision. So this vision will help us to refocus the objective of the SPP And it reads as follows. So for tonight, I will just say some few words, some few important words that's inside. So we need a vibrant heart, a vitality, greenery, safety, dynamic commercial, spirits of its community. It's a crossroad for user and resident. We need stunning architecture, fine alloy between heritage preservation and contemporary, human-scale architecture, and local identity. So this is our vision for starting. In the next few slides, I will presenting the main area of action in response to the issue and existing component to provide us with the best tools for planning future development. So again, the SPP's recommendation and guideline, it does not constitute a forecast of what will be constructed. It's not a matter of a real project, and further study could be carried out to the feasibility. Alors ici, on a un plan d'ensemble qui vous présente les principales idées d'aménagement du secteur, donc qui sont représentées en 7 grandes idées. Résumé ici, la première, qui est le numéro 1, qui est notre place publique centrale au cœur du secteur, animée et confortable, qui est reliée à un axe nord-sud, qui est le point numéro 5 sur le plan, qui offre une perméabilité au secteur et une aisance pour les piétons. On a ensuite, au numéro 2, une proposition d'esplanade sur Dorchester, d'Atwater jusqu'au bout, qui contribue au verdissement et au rehaussement de l'aménagement urbain du secteur. Cette esplanade aboutit au point 3, qui va être le parc Dorchester-Clark, un grand parc tout de même, aménagé et verdi, revisité. On a aussi l'intervention numéro 4, qui est pour nous, on croit, une primordiale à la réussite de la vision, qui est la requalification de l'entrée de la ville sur Sainte-Catherine. Il y a plusieurs éléments qui ont été élaborés pour permettre de changer le statu quo et de s'arrimer avec la vraie identité de Westmount. On a aussi, au point 6, le réaménagement du boulevard Maisonneuve qui propose des aménagements qui sont inspirés des aménagements éphémères et qui va venir compléter les interventions dans le secteur. Finalement, on a dans les encadrés orange, il y a 2 options qui ont été réfléchies pour l'implantation d'un équipement collectif qui pourrait contribuer de façon significative à changer l'usage du secteur et son image. Following from the 2D plan present, we will show you some 3D perspective to give you an idea of what the concept can look and feel like. Once again, this is not a project, but it's an artist's impression of what the atmosphere here on Dorchester can feel, can be. The important here is the volume and the component. So we want to show you some townhouse with intimate entrance. There's some story over podium with setback. We have rhythm that remember the ancient lot and with the frequency of entries. We have a complete frame street. We have vehicles separate from the esplanade. We have a lively street with a quality of life in the neighborhood, as much green as possible. And we have all the area that were to be redeveloped, have guidelines, and will be ensure the Westmount identity. Here is the Place Gladstone, and it's the idea of a destination, a place to be with friends and family. It's helping the living up the forecourt for the potential community facility. It's a smaller area, cool island, lots of greenery, a pocket square, and we gave an interesting framework with residential use. It's Place Gladstone, so you will see on the plan, but it's in the heart of the sector, Dorchester, Gladstone. We use some Westmount signature furniture. And here we have the St. Catherine Street, the new St. Catherine Street, with the enhancement of the podium, a human scale, feeling. This is a busy shopping street, shops, restaurants, and even hotel on the street. We envision shop window contributing to the streetscape and a lot of greening again. So now, how do we make this vision a reality? So we need strategy, and first, about parks and place. Here is the major three aspects of the project. So again, it's the Esplanade, Place Gladstone, and Parc Dorchester. But it's also the idea to add planting bed where as possible, as water retention structure and green roof. In detail, for the Place Gladstone, it's, like I said, a pocket square with an active circulation corridor. We have interfaced with the potential community facility. The relation indoor-outdoor is the kind of the idea we want here. It's a large planting island and extensive canopy. And for the Parc Dorchester-Clark, with the images in here, the idea is a whole new Dorchester-Clark configuration park, a larger green space, and we have smoother active travel. Maintenant, en termes de mobilité, sous toute réserve d'études de circulation, encore une fois, l'idée a été de conserver en majorité les sens de circulation actuels, mais de réfléchir à des moyens d'apaiser la circulation véhiculaire, soit par des chaussées surélevées, des ajouts de saillies, des rétrécissements de chaussées, et donc de regagner de l'espace pour redonner aux piétons et cyclistes. En plan, il est également question d'offrir une plus grande perméabilité nord-sud, donc on a réfléchi des liens piétons pour permettre des axes sécuritaires et des déplacements plus confortables. Encore une fois, en détail ici, pour ce qui est de Maisonneuve, si on regarde ce secteur, on conserve les aménagements qui sont éphémères pour redonner un espace d'appropriation. Donc, on retire les espaces de stationnement du côté nord pour pouvoir redonner de l'espace et on conserve bien évidemment la piste cyclable qui est existante. Pour Sainte-Catherine, on conserve les deux sens de circulation et les stationnements de chaque côté. Par contre, ce qu'on vient faire, c'est réduire la largeur des stationnements pour pouvoir, encore une fois, redonner au trottoir, à l'espace piéton devant les vitrines des commerces. Et il y a aussi l'intention de créer une intersection surélevée au cœur patrimonial existant sur la rue Sainte-Catherine pour ajouter une richesse urbaine, pouvoir permettre des programmations intéressantes pour prendre place. C'est dans un espace partagé que l'automobiliste ne sera pas le principal usager, puis donc on pourra ressentir un aménagement de quartier intéressant. Et pour ce qui est de Dorchester, au côté sud et le terre-plein, ça reste tel quel, même dimension, même stationnement. Côté nord, c'est là où on est venu retirer les stationnements pour pouvoir venir implanter l'esplanade qui comprend du mobilier, des luminaires, de l'aménagement, du verdissement. Maintenant, en termes d'usage, les changements qu'on apporte avec le PPU et ce qui sera permis dans le secteur, si on regarde, on commence par Sainte-Catherine, c'est un usage mixte, donc on souhaite avoir le commercial au rez-de-chaussée et d'avoir du résidentiel pour ce qui est à venir. L'important aussi ici, c'est de retenir que sur Dorchester, on conserve seulement un usage résidentiel, à l'exception s'il y a un projet avec zonage incitatif où il y aurait une entente, on pourrait avoir un équipement collectif potentiel. Sinon, c'est du résidentiel jusqu'au bout. So after that, what form will these use take? So buildings, form, and massing are the main principles that have guided the drafting of the amendment. What has been taken into account is these 5 principal guidelines. So it was climate comfort and sunlight, modulation of height from existing neighborhood to create a gradation, framing and animating public space, the rhythm, volume, allowing space to be personalized, and the importance of podium setback for the upper tower that encourage development on a human scale. Again, here for Dorchester, with the images, we can imagine some interesting modulation with draw, frame, rhythm for Dorchester. And for St. Catherine, we have a desire for distinctive architecture, well-thought podium to fit in with the Westmount context, and narrow development to keep the sun shining in. En finissant ici avec le plan des hauteurs qui illustre ce qu'on propose dans notre concept, Je vous explique rapidement les bulles, c'est le plus important à retenir. Les bulles en noir, c'est les hauteurs proposées pour les basilaires. Les bulles vides, ce sont les hauteurs totales, donc incluant les basilaires. On a 2 bulles à 4 cadrans qui sont les potentiels zonages incitatifs qui vous seront expliqués dans quelques instants. Puis on a des bulles en dehors du secteur un peu plus pâles pour expliquer les hauteurs existantes, dans quoi on vient s'implanter. Donc si on regarde les hauteurs par secteur, je commencerai par Sainte-Catherine, côté sud, on propose des 20 étages. On a aussi tenté de représenter le plus possible des mètres pour donner des référents. Donc, 20 étages, 66 mètres sur des basilaires de 2 à 4 étages, qui est environ 16 mètres. Sainte-Catherine-Nord peut avoir 24 étages ou 29 s'il y a une entente de zonage incitatif pour un maximum de 95 mètres. En comparaison avec l'existant, il y a la tour la plus haute sur Alexignon qui est déjà 95 mètres. Donc, on ne vient pas dépasser une hauteur existante dans le secteur. Ensuite, si on regarde Topper, c'est du 10 étages, 31 mètres, avec des basilaires toujours et cette modulation d'environ 14 mètres. En terminant avec Dorchester, on propose un 7 étages, comme ça vous a été mentionné, mais bien important, avec un basilaire de 3 étages qui représente 12 mètres environ. Et puis, si on peut regarder son équivalent de l'autre côté, les bâtiments existants font un total d'environ 14 mètres de hauteur. Donc, l'idée était de rejoindre les basilaires des bâtiments proposés avec l'existant de l'autre côté pour avoir un équilibre et un cadre de rue intéressant. Donc, cette hauteur est représentée également ici en axonométrie. L'important de retenir, c'est que cette axonométrie représente la gradation. On voulait montrer les volumes seulement en termes du plus petit au plus haut. Il faut se rappeler, par contre, qu'il y a un PIA qui accompagne tout notre travail ici. Il y a une nouvelle directive complète qui a été rédigée pour s'arrimer spécifiquement au nouveau projet de haute densité. Donc, ce qui est démontré ici sera contrôlé et dans le respect de l'identité de Westmount. Et finalement, ces hauteurs représentent des densités sur le terrain à redévelopper, donc les terrains qui ont été identifiés au début de la présentation dans le calcul de la CMM, ont réussi à avoir 91 logements à l'hectare. C'est dans le secteur sur les terrains qui nous permettent. Bien évidemment, on propose un secteur à plus grand développement pour plusieurs raisons, et avec tout ce qu'on propose et les logements existants, nous avons environ 1000 nouveaux logements dans le secteur. Cette densité est donc très importante et ça répond à plusieurs enjeux qui vous ont été énoncés, mais pour nous, on croit très important de combler le manque de logements qui est à proximité d'un pôle de transport, d'optimiser l'utilisation du sol, de créer des conditions favorables à l'investissement puis au redéveloppement du secteur et finalement d'encourager la pérennité commerciale. Donc, c'est ce qui fait le tour du concept sommairement pour pouvoir passer à la mise en œuvre. Sorry? So on St. Catherine, you have 20-story. St. Catherine South, 20-story. On North, on St. Catherine, you have 24-story. On Tupper, we have 10-story. Also, always with a modulation with podium. And on Dorchester, we have 7-story with a 3-story podium.
Why don't we ask the questions at the end?
We wait? Okay.
On va poser les questions à la fin.
The next step was about your question, madam. The next slide. Yes. So this is a sum up of the density calculation that is related to, of course, the sites that must be considered in the calculation. And there's another line under this one that includes also the possibility of a new tower on the Place Alexignon, which is not part of a site to be redeveloped, just to give you an information. First of all, There was a question about how many hectares there are in the designated superficie. It's 1.73 hectare, so it's less than 2. 1 hectare is 10,000 square meter. So the density if we exclude the bonus zoning possibility, because it's a possibility, it might not be used, the bonus might not be used, of course, so we go with the basic. We will reach 4.91, which is 491, sorry, which is just over the threshold of 480 that must be reached. And if you like to know in terms of how many new units, of course we don't know yet the size, but we go with an average. We could have, without zonal zoning, a possibility, optimal possibility of 1,519. And with the bonus zoning, we could go up to 1,645 new units. It's the optimal situation if everything was constructed to the maximum possible. And that includes the ready memorial. So now, what should we do now and for the short and middle term after the adoption of this PPU? So you see there's the blue squares that are proposed as short term, 0 to 2 years, and also the midterm in orange that is a range of 3 to 5 years. Of course, we do have a network capacity, infrastructure capacity study to make sure the aqueduct, the sewer, hydro waste mount have all it needs to have those new units. It's already started, so it's short term. We can see now and for the next month. We do have some preliminary information, and we also know that as of now, the capacity as of now can allow for some new construction. Not all the project, but there's a possibility for the short term. If there was an application for a permit in November, we could have some capacity, but just for the beginning. Interesting thing, the règlement sur la gestion des eaux pluviales, stormwater management regulation, what it is. Maybe most of you know that our sewer in Westmount is combined. So there's only one pipe that collects what we call gray water, so the domestic water, but also the storm water, which is not in the actual standards. Newer development or newer system do have two separate systems. And we know with the flash rain and the situation now that we do have some extreme rainfalls, it becomes more and more important to address this situation that has an impact for every resident of Westmount. This bylaw is planned to required for this area for new developers to sustain their own stormwater with un rejet nul. Donc there would be no additional rejet au réseau municipal. So that implies the developers to have a small infrastructure to keep stormwater. This is in progress now. There's the adoption of a bonus zoning bylaw, which we will talk a little bit also later, but bonus zoning bylaw is a very interesting tool. It's possible to have this bylaw only since 2023, so it's brand new. There's a handful of municipalities that do have this bylaw now, so we would be among the first, which is nice to know. And this tool is a discretionary tool that allows a municipality to negotiate with private owners in order to have some incentive included on a private property. There's specific type of incentive that are authorized. It might be a matter of environment, heritage, affordability housing, and also collective equipment. So all of those four types of incentive could be used by the council to negotiate a bonus. So in exchange for the municipality for having one of those incentives, the bonus gives back, if the council agrees, it's always up to the council to agree or not, it might give a bonus of 5 stories to determine areas, Alexignon and the 1100 Atwater site. So it's only for those 2 sites. Very interesting, we believe. There's also a programme d'acquisition d'immeubles, Immovable Acquisition Program. This is possible only because we're doing a PPU according to the law or the Act respecting land use and development. Normally, a municipality cannot acquire or cannot do real estate except for municipal purposes. They want to build a street, a park, there's some mechanism, but if it's to realize a private vision, because most of this vision is on private property, normally the municipality don't have the right to do this kind of real estate. In the case of a PPU, this is possible. So this is a tool in a toolbox. May never be used, but it's good to know that it's in our toolbox. Same type of situation. We can have city developer agreement for various reasons. It could be to acquire land on a conventional way. So there's various possibility of different agreements. So it's in the midterm. Now in the second column, équipement collectif et aménagement public. L'équipement collectif, il y aurait une étude de faisabilité. On parle de certains types d'équipements collectifs dont peut-être vous avez déjà entendu parler ou peut-être que vous souhaitez avoir vous-même. Avant d'investir pour un équipement collectif, bien sûr, il y a des études qui doivent être faites en termes de nécessité, en termes de coûts, etc. C'est dans le court terme. Plans et devis, aménagement public. So for all the public realm, the public domain, the streets, essentially, what Janie showed you about the redesign of St. Catherine, Dorchester, etc., there will be in the short term plans and specification to be done. And also réalisation des travaux d'aménagement public. So the next step after the plan and specification, the realization would be in the midterm. Étude de circulation, I don't have to say more about this, but of course, if we welcome new residents, there's also a verification about the configuration of the actual street network to be done, the intersection, traffic lights, etc. And finally, we do have an important part in the area that is considered as heritage. We do have Dawson College. Westmount Square is nearby, but not in the area. Of course, Atwater Library. And the Packard building that is not in its best situation now. For those, we're amending the SPIP bylaw, which is the architectural bylaw, to make it updated and also to consider some criteria and standards for the building of new tower that we do not have anything included as of now in the bylaw. Public domain, donc le phasage, la proposition, c'est sous toute réserve, mais la proposition serait dans un premier temps de commencer avec la réfection de la rue Sainte-Catherine. C'est une rue qui a quand même une largeur généreuse. On peut convenir qu'elle est trop large en termes d'utilisation de véhicules, ce n'est pas nécessaire. Donc, c'est un endroit où on peut débuter plutôt facilement. Ensuite, la proposition serait de continuer avec la nouvelle place Gladstone. This is located right at the intersection of Dorchester and Clandeboye, to the north, to the access that goes to the Bureau en Gros parking lot. So this would create an access and kind of a shortcut for people south of Dorchester to Alex Neil. Then, thirdly, the Esplanade Dorchester that runs along Dorchester, shared landscape access, that is the continuity of the Place Gladstone, Tupper redesign, and Gladstone Street redesign at the end. This is my last part. Thank you for your patience. We presented you the report document, the planning tool, the PPU. Goes with it the adoption of concordance bylaw, règlement de concordance. Those are the provisions that are opposable to residents. So the PPU document is a vision document, but it's not a typical bylaw. The real bylaws that we use for construction permits is in this. So we will have to modify the zoning bylaw to adapt for the high density building footprint, etc., to represent what is in the PPU. We have to add, and this is an interesting thing at the bottom, the addition of a park contribution for redevelopment projects. The municipalities in Quebec can and normally required a contribution for parks when there's subdivision, lot subdivision. It equals to either 10% of the superficie that is given to the city for park purpose, or the equivalent of this 10% of the land value. Now, since not that long ago, maybe 2010, this is possible to require this contribution when issuance of a construction permit. It is possible that for the construction on Sud-Est, there's no subdivision required. So we wouldn't have any contribution in this case if we don't do nothing. If we add this, when issuing a construction permit, we will be allowed to require a contribution that is 10% of the land value or 10% in land. We talk about bonus zoning. I think I explained this enough. If you have questions at the end. Subdivision bylaw, there's only one item that is modified to impose a minimum lot width on St. Catherine to allow for a construction. This is technical, but this is an addition. And the SPAIP, which is the site planning and architectural integration bylaw, is amended a lot to include most criteria and objectives that will be required to allow for a good integration of proposed building on a sensitive area like Southeast. I won't detail the list, but it reach every type of detail like implementation, type of masonry, heights, shapes, name it. It's very detailed. And this is my conclusion now. The presentation of the SPP and the concordance bylaw is now complete. We hope we have been able to explain the main points of this process as clearly as possible. Let's not forget, this document is a construction request. Is not, sorry, a construction request, but a planning tool. We are confident that after 18 months of collaborative work, this document will enable this high potential sector to develop under a shared vision. A shared vision that also meets our obligations as a member of a CMN. We are taking this step together for you, but above all, for the generation that will follow us. Next step, final modification and adjustment, if applicable, and the final adoption of the PPU that is planned to September 8th at the City Hall. Thank you.
Merci Frédéric pour la présentation. Merci Janie. Merci à vous pour votre attention. Thank you very much for your attention. So we're now going to go to the question period. Just a few reminder to have a question period that is as productive as possible. So please, if you can limit your question and comments to 3 minutes to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. And just approach the mic, state your name, and if you're working for a particular organization, just name the organization. Dites votre nom et l'organisation pour laquelle vous travaillez si c'est le cas. Et les questions devront être dirigées à Madame la mairesse, qui va pouvoir diriger à d'autres personnes si c'est nécessaire. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Mugisha. Puis, on va commencer avec des questions ou ça peut être des commentaires, mais vous pouvez aussi envoyer des commentaires. Je sais que tout le monde ne veut pas toujours poser des questions dans des forums publics comme ça. I know that sometimes people don't want to ask questions in a public forum. We have received some commentary from some people who have reviewed this online, and we will continue to do so. We are very easy to find if you go on the website. Donc, on va commencer avec des questions.
Good evening. Oh,
Is it on?
There we go.
I believe it
Way
is.
too tall. There. Right. Hi, my name is Jessica Winton. I thought the plan was very, very well done. I thought there were a lot of better explanations done this time, and so I really appreciate the work that's been put into this. I do have one main concern, which is in regards to affordable housing, because I did not see anything within this presentation about it, but I did see it previously within the report. And additionally, regarding the units that would be generated from the PPU, I saw like about a minimum of around 800 and a maximum of just under 2,000. However, it doesn't include any description of what these units are composed of, including their size, so whether or not they're family units, social housing, or affordable housing. You did mention the bonus incentive zoning, which is the suspended diverse metropolis law. I really hope the city is not relying on this because it has generated approximately 0 units of social or affordable housing since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping and wanted to ask if the city has any plans to implement something aside from that.
So, est-ce qu'on va commencer avec sur ce côté ou la vôtre?
So relating with affordable housing, your question?
Yes.
Yeah, we do have some answers. First of all, we are increasing the supply of housing. This is the easiest and the most significant way to address this situation. Also, we are adapting the existing standards with relating to dwellings. Actually, as of now, there's a minimum requirement of 700 square feet by units. This is the minimum, which might be like a small 2 rooms. But the existing situation, the demand for smaller house units is existing. So we are lowering it to 550 square feet. This is not neither the Tour du Canadien with hotel rooms. So this is the equivalent of a one-room apartment. We're also reducing the standards for minimum parking requirements. Throughout Westmount, we do have a minimum of one parking per unit throughout the territory. But in a third area, which is neighboring a metro station, this is a luxury. This is luxury. And this is lowering, certainly, the price of an apartment. And finally, we do have the bonus zoning. This is not the bylaw you are referring to in Montreal, really not. This is a discretionary tool that allows the municipality to negotiate, as I explained, to have an incentive, and this incentive includes affordable housing.
Am I allowed to follow up, or is there no time? Okay. So you mentioned how the minimum square footage for a unit will be 500 square feet. At least from my courses as a now graduated urban planning student, the standard that we used for a unit size was about 1,300 square feet. And this was in the Assemblée area around the metro near the Botanical Gardens and Olympic Stadium. So it seems kind of discouraging to me, as somebody who wants to raise a family one day, that the units will remain pretty small and unable to raise a family. And there weren't any mentions of the percentages of how unit sizes will be distributed. And I understand this isn't a building plan. There's no buildings being proposed here, but I'd still like to see something.
But the bonus zoning may give way to the city to negotiate. When we talk about affordable housing, it can be accessible housing. It could be affordable family housing. So there's a spectrum of possibility that exists, but it's discretionary. We might have this kind of project with this bylaw.
I would hope so.
So thank you very much. Your comments are very much noted in terms of your concerns around accessibility and affordability in this area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Just want to say I've been there and I've been here. I'd rather be here.
I'll soon be joining you on the other
The night
side.
will be over soon. For
Save me
all
a
of you.
seat on the other side.
The mic's not on?
It
It's
was on
I
before.
just need to maybe move it even lower than that. I think as I get older, I get lower. Okay. I just wanted to start by responding to the comment that I hear every time there's a complaint, and that is we have to do something about St. Catherine Street. I don't think there's anybody in this room who would say that nothing has to be done about St. Catherine Street. But the choice is not nothing or this. And I think that's a really important distinction, and often we are put in the place of feeling like, well, okay, if you don't like it, we're going to leave it like that. I think that's not what people are saying. They're saying they're not necessarily happy with this project and that there are other ways to do it. While I'm concerned about the quality of the project, my strongest reaction really is to the process. I think usually this kind of thing starts with goals, and goals for our community which come from data that's substantiated. Then it states how they'll be accomplished and how they'll be measured. Nowhere in the LeMay plan is there such a goal. To densify isn't a goal, it's a means of accomplishing. So is the goal to bring in more families? Is it to provide more places for empty nesters? If so, how many? If families, how many families? Are we looking to add revenue to our city coffers? And if so, how much? And are we looking to provide affordable housing? If we're looking to provide affordable housing, by what method and with how many units? And I saw that you mentioned it depends on who pays for it. But first, does the city have a goal for it? And I think that's the role of council and the urban planning department, is to develop the goals for what is it we want in this community. And the goals matter because they determine what kind of zoning and building regulations should be passed before the developers submit plans. At the May 27 council meeting, the first draft of those bylaws, the concordance bylaws, were passed, including ones that state that the minimum units can have 550 square feet. I agree. That's not going to bring in families. And while people will say, yes, but the builders will build what they can sell, what they can rent, it seems to me that it's council's job to determine what kind of community do we want. And the reason there were previous large units and some small ones was because council decided this is a community we want for families. We want an amount for singles and for seniors, but we want it for families. So the definition was given of what percentage should be for what. In doing this, if it's cheaper and if it's a better return for developers, they can just make them all 550 square feet. And then the council has not determined what the community should be. The developers have. I think then there was the consultation process, and many meetings don't qualify as real consultation. Putting red dots and green dots on other cities' images, I don't think enables us to say, this is what we as residents, and you have so many outstanding professionals in this community, what we want to see, and then to refine it. And once you have those goals, be they money, be they families, be they whatever, to say, okay, how do we take what people are saying and put them together with the articulated goals that we can then measure? In my time on council and as mayor, if we wanted to make changes in zoning and didn't have community buy-in, then a referendum was held. So it behooved us to listen, to be transparent, to provide all information, and to make sure that all of that would convince residents that it was a good plan, or we had to go back to the drawing board. The developers also had to take all of this into account, and they did. I realize that the laws have changed, and you no longer have to do that. The referendum does not have to be held. But it doesn't change the fact that having buy-in from real consultation and transparency is still the way to go. I think there's a really good start. And since it doesn't seem to be the case that the buy-in is there, and we've seen a lot of negative comments, 70% of the people who responded to the first Engage Westmount site were not happy with what was being done. And I suspect that there are many here who feel the same way. I would call on council to delay the vote since it comes so close to election time, not to abandon change. But to hand over the work that has been done so that the next council can build on that with the community and complete the project in a less divisive way. I just want to say that I had the good fortune to do a lot of the planning for the arena, to get the money to do the program, and there's nothing I would have liked better than to bring it home. But it was divisive at that point. And I said, you know what? It's not right. I'm leaving. Just like you, I had already announced I was leaving. And I felt it was not appropriate to have a vote just before I left. And sadly, and it was sadly, I said it has to be passed on to the next administration.
Sorry to interrupt.
You were part
if
of
you
that.
can wrap up your comments, because we have a lot of people waiting online. Thank you.
I'll just finish my sentence. You were part of that. And I think that a good project was brought out and the community was behind it. And I would love to see for that to happen again.
So thank you for your comments. I know there's a huge amount of people in the room, but I'm going to weigh in a little bit on this. And thank you, Ms. Marks. I'll call you by your formal name. And your feedback has been important and has contributed to a part of this process. And many of you were at the public consultations. Many of you weren't. You have expressed concerns. We have heard them all, but we have also, I know that the people in this room may find it shocking. There are differing opinions as well, and they don't always come to council, and they may not write letters to the editor of the Westbound Independent, but they do communicate with, and I can assure you, we do hear from them as well. And we set out the goals very clearly at the beginning of this. And this hasn't been something, I mean, And we know this isn't an easy issue. If it was, it would have been solved decades ago. It existed when you were on council. It's existed for essentially 60 years, right? Since we, as a city, allowed the destruction of a neighborhood, essentially. So it's been a long time coming, and we have had, we set out very clear calendar at the beginning, and we're listening, and there is no vote tonight. This is not being passed tonight, so I'm not gonna declare a change, or I'm not gonna say, all right, folks, we're out of here, and everybody can go home and enjoy this warm summer night. We're listening, and we're listening to all sides as well, and it's not. I think there's a lot more voices on this than maybe some of the people in this room here. But we were very clear on the calendar from the get-go, and I hope that a lot of you in this room saw the work that has gone into this, saw the goals, and it's not sustainable. This cannot go on for another decade. We cannot lose another decade of this. We have heard from so many people. I heard when I ran in 2017, this was a major part of our platform. My opponent had the exact same, major issue in his platform. This has been a problem for a very, very long time. So now we'll move on to the next question. Next question.
Hi, James Murphy, Melville Avenue. It's a couple
Welcome.
of comments. I'll keep them short. We have a really hard time getting things built in this country, and I think the blight in Southeast Westmount is a terrible example of it, and it's a great place to get started building. This is the third time I've come out to Victoria Hall for one of these workshops. I can see you're baking the feedback into the plan, which is great. I think we're at the point now, we just need to move forward, do it as soon as possible so that we can start welcoming the new neighbors and the new businesses that can bring that area to life. I want to say what Westmount means to me. Lots of people know Westmount for the beautiful heritage homes that are here. And that's a big part of what makes Westmount special. But what also makes Westmount special is that we are an urban community. We are a diverse urban community. And if anyone was here, I know someone on council was here on Saturday. They had the ballet recital here, full of all families who have been here for a long time, as well as newcomers. And a lot of them are living in mid-rise apartments around Westmount Park. A lot of them are renters. And I can tell you, they're feeling the pinch. They're feeling the lack of housing options. And it's not just a diversity of people we have in this community. Look at the buildings. On a nice summer day, I can get out of the metro at Atwater and walk along Maisonneuve, because it's nice on Maisonneuve. And you see that beautiful Westmount Square. And then I walk past kind of low-rise homes on Maisonneuve, and then back up to the mid-rise around Westmount Park. And it's beautiful. If I'm in a rush, if I'm with the kids and I'm on St. Catherine, it's frankly disgusting. So let's keep in mind that there is no question, it's a series of comments. If anyone tells you that Westmount is defined by our built heritage or low-rise buildings, let me tell you, they're missing something huge. And you know what else people might be missing if they don't come out to council? At the last 3 council meetings, young people and students have been coming to council telling you about how hard it is to find appropriate accommodations. We've had developers come out and say they want to build the accommodations. I say let them have at it. You know what? Developer is not a bad word. If they want to build something useful, I say we ought to let them, and we ought to let them make a profit. That's how our market economy works. Please do not delay this. There's been years of delay. And no wonder there's been delay. The system is designed for delay. And I know you just inherited the system. The system is designed for delay. What started as a set of norms and regulations to protect heritage has become this awful mess of red tape, endless hand-wringing, endless consultation. We can't get anything built. And for what? To protect a parking lot? To protect abandoned shops? The system's already stacked against progress. And I've given you this feedback before. I suggest that 0 to 2 year needs assessment, front load it, see what the capacity is. Maybe you can cut it down to 0 years. My
Okay,
last
so
point.
do you have a final question, or?
A final point on inclusivity. Let's keep this inclusive. I noticed in the planning program it still talks about young families. I'm flattered. But I also hear from people who say young families don't want to live in high rises. In fact, I hear that the most from community groups that don't offer services or have membership amongst young families. If you want to know what young families need, and I know your door is open, talk to young families. Don't talk to politicians who haven't faced the voters in 20 years. Don't talk to private clubs that don't serve young families. I'll speak for myself. I have a young family. We need more housing. We need to get rid of the kind of antisocial behavior that we see on Atwater. It's just gotten worse since COVID. So we've been at this for a long time. I think it's time to move forward. It's time to build. If people don't like it, I think they should put their name on the ballot and do what many of you have done, which is face the voters and get a mandate. And I can tell you, in 2025, the voters are not going to go for candidates who are against housing and against redeveloping this neighborhood.
So I think that was more of a statement than a question.
It was all statements. It was all statements.
So thank you for your feedback, and I agree with you on many of the points, but we'll move on to the next question or comment.
What do I do? Am I on?
I can hear you. I don't know
You
if
can
the
hear
rest
me.
of the room can.
Lucy Fellows, Wood Avenue. Good evening,
Welcome.
Mayor and Council. Thank you. Thank you for your initiative and hard work on this file, and for the opportunity, again, for us to comment. We all want a plan for our southeast sector. I support the project. Now, with the special planning program, we have a framework, and much of what we've seen so far has great potential. In the framework, the weakest part may be just where we need the strength, St. Catherine Street, west of Atwater. We want a vibrant neighborhood, we want to welcome new residents, and we must meet a density threshold. It's not clear if the strategy of building 4 or 5 high-rise towers in that location will realize those outcomes. We already have high-rises in Westmount. They're part of our urban fabric. The question of 5 new high-rise towers, 20 floors up to a possible 29, has to be evaluated in relation to this time and this place. 2 factors to evaluate are feasibility and viability. On feasibility, of all the possible projects for the southeast sector that we've seen reviewed this evening, at least 4 of the high-rises could be the last to be developed and delivered. The lots will be quickly purchased at current valuations, but with financial uncertainties, infrastructure analysis and upgrades, the permitting process, and then construction, it could be years, maybe 5 or 10, before we see them ready for occupancy. Until then, we could still see empty lots. On viability, look at the context of our southeast sector. There are already residential towers east of Atwater, including 1111 Atwater and the Square Children's. These have vacancies, and some offer incentives for new rentals. But they're not comparable, we'll say, because people would rather live across the street in Westmount. Yes, and that means that the new buildings must be appealing in what they offer. A range of sizes, from studios to accommodations suitable for the families we want to welcome, and amenities, indoors and out, and they must be competitive with market rates to rent or buy. In addition, presumably there are requirements to meet for affordable housing in these towers, or perhaps that's one of the chips in negotiating incentive zoning. Residential high-rises have a long history in Westmount. Westmount Square, Wood are including. Already in the southeast sector, there's Plaza Tower adjoining Alexis Nihon on de Maisonneuve at Atwater. This rental building of 426 apartments is not fully occupied, and it offers incentives also for new tenants. The SPP allows for a new tower of up to 29 floors above Alexis Nihon, which itself is currently 3 floors, adding up to the equivalent of 32 possible floors, not counting HVAC and superstructure. The high-rise element of the SPP is the riskiest for our community because of all the variables and unknowns over possibly years to come. We just need to know what effects the towers will have on light, shade, and wind on that stretch of St. Catherine Street and to the south of the tower blocks, what infrastructure upgrades will be needed, where and for how long, what partnerships are required to implement these plans, how reliable are the projections for occupancy, what's a realistic time frame for this phase, can adjustments be made to heights to make the plans more acceptable, and finally, how well will the 5 high-rises enhance the city's vision statement for the southeast sector: greening, animation, openness, identity, community, and I'll add safety. So, Mayor and Council, please revisit this part of the SPP and come back to us with alternatives before you vote in September. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your commentary. And you had, I also think you had shared that with all of Council, in large part, that commentary this week. So I thank you as well for giving us a heads up on your commentary. And I think there, obviously on St. Catherine Street, if that is the maximum allowable height, it doesn't mean that the developer will absolutely build to that height, but it would be the maximum allowable height. You want to add anything to that? And it's what we have there now, just so we're all clear, is 7 stories. That was upzoned from 3 stories to 7 stories in 2014, and we have not had any conforming projects come in. There has been no movement on it, and what we've seen is just a continual decline of the area. So we know that 7 is obviously not responding to the needs of the area. So, Councillor Peart, do you want to add anything before we
Just a couple of things.
move on to the next one?
I often hear people refer to on top of Alexis Nihon. The heights that are quoted on the drawings are the total heights. They're not the heights that are put on top of the Alexis Nihon. It is the total height. So it could go to 20, what is equivalent to 24, starting from the ground, not 24 on top of the podium. Just to make it clear for everybody.
Inclusive, okay.
It's inclusive. And also even that logic also applies on anywhere where we're talking about a Basilao. So if we say on Dorchester, it's 3 and then 7, it's not 7 on top of the 3, it's 4 on top of the 3 to make 7. Just to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. A quick comment too on the towers, the 4 towers. They are tall, as they are high rises at 20 stories, and again 20 stories total, including the 3-story podium. Compared to Westmount Square, which is all 3 towers are the equivalent of 22 stories. So shorter than Westmount Square. Additionally, the floor area of the towers, if you take 2 of the 4 towers that are shown, and we're just imagine if you were just put them side by side, those 2 towers is more or less equivalent in floor plate size to 1 of the Westmount Square towers. The towers are tall, but what a better word is, the towers are slender. And so that may probably impact the way that you appreciate it visually, but the towers are no taller than the towers at Westmount Square.
Thank you.
Slender tower still casts shadow.
So thank you for your feedback, and it was very comprehensive in the communication you sent with council. Next question or comment.
Bonjour. My name, Chris Black. I repeat, Chris Black. Chris Black. So everybody remembers my name.
Curious Black. Is that
Chris,
what you said?
not curious. Chris.
Chris, sorry.
Crowd, with me. Chris.
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 Black. Chris.
Okay.
There you go. The
All
next
right.
Elon Musk is me and my crew. So, I know what I'm about to say might trigger some people might feel offended, but we're doing this wrong, completely, totally wrong. So the first thing I want to say is, right now, we are in need of leadership, not only in Montreal, not only in Westmount, but in all Canada. And what people need is not the numbers. Just like Mrs. Mark said, I'll piggyback on what she said. What we need is a vision. A vision is not numbers on a board. A vision is a feeling. A vision is something that people can see, can talk to their families about. We cannot talk to people about, wow, the setback said we need to put 7 inches over here and 20 centimeters over there. That's not a vision. That's just numbers. A vision is we want a feeling of Sarah Jessica Parker is coming out of Green Street. She's coming out to talk with Britney Spears about the new Chanel bag or something. We need something that people can see, people can feel, people can understand, and people can relate to. Right now over here, the crowd is, with all due respect, we're old people. Don't be offended, people, it's all right. So these are jokes.
Okay.
Old people here, and it doesn't represent the full experience of what Westmount is, and it surely doesn't represent what Westmount will be in 20 years. 20 years from now, what we need is something that people will look at St. Catherine and think, we were so stupid back then. How come we didn't see how obvious it was? What we need is more energy, younger energy. What we need is more ambitious plans. What we need is, right now, I would say that right now is somebody that everybody can relate to, everybody hates, but everybody recognizes is Donald J. Trump energy. Right now is when your entrepreneurs, when your daughter-in-law who knows the doctor to radial you or something, needs to come out and tell people that we need bigger vision. The numbers, this is just basic stuff. This is what we would give to any regular project. We need pictures, videos, music, and we need for the next class, everybody here needs to have a piece of paper with a drawing of what Westmount means to them. This way you can show to the person next to you. If they said, we got the same vision, we're on the same board. If not...
Okay, so thank you for your commentary.
My name is?
Your name is Chris Black.
Thank you. Thank you, class. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marina Bresky. I'm a former councillor at the City of Westmount. Was it for the last term? Thank you very much for the opportunity of commenting and questioning. I'm in alignment with former Mayor Marks, I have to admit, and would be more comfortable with a delay to consider a few what I feel are red flags. I mean, when there was a change proposed to the planning program, that's when I started to get nervous. Because the planning program is the vision document of what Westmount is. I read the planning program and I feel, oh, that's me. I'm in Westmount. I'm a Westmounter. I've been living here, over 15 years. This is my city. For you to come in just a few weeks ago and make a change to the planning program, which is the vision of City of Westmount, to suddenly change the words, welcoming families, low to mid-level to high-rise is a big game changer. Now, we had a public consultation a couple of years ago. A lot of us came into this very room to discuss vision. And I was expecting you to change the planning program first and then move on to the southeast and propose something in alignment with that. But you didn't. You went the other way. So for reasons of process, I would feel much more comfortable if I was aligned with your vision and not be surprised by it and suddenly see a council who's in favor of high-rises. High-rises. I mean, maybe there's a good reason for it, but you gotta prep us for it because that's not what human scale is. And in the vision document, in the planning program, we talk about sustainable development, sustainable building, adding to Alexis Neon with the base that is existing is 7 floors, but we're giving them carte blanche to go 25. You're encouraging demolition and reconstruction, and that is not environmental. So are we sticking with the planning program, or are you just whimsically changing what Westmount is? So I just wanted to make... Thank you. So I just wanted to make 2 more clarifications. One, we have one flex tool that you're proposing, a new one, the Flex 5 floor, or whatever it's called. We actually
Incentive zoning.
Incentive zoning, thank you. We actually have a flexible planning tool, and it's called the PPC-moi, Scopy. There is no reason why any of these property owners could not come forward and propose a bigger building through the Scopy bylaw. The only difference is that the Scopy bylaw requires 2 public consultations and can go towards a referendum. And your flexibility tool that you're proposing does not require any public consultation nor referendum. So you're giving more discretionary powers to council and less to the public. So this concerns me for somebody who advocates for participatory democracy. I don't think you need a second tool just to bypass public opinion.
So, and then we will move on because there's quite a lineup behind you. Thank you. I'm not sure if you participated in the public consultations.
I did participate in the public consultations, and I've recorded and written my comments. But the last point, which is just a red flag for engineers, depth of excavation. You're not talking about it. There was a sinkhole on St. Catherine. There is a metro. Have you considered what's underground and what can go? Because the parking bylaws require 1 parking per unit. Imagine how these tall high-rises will require how many floors underground. That's another point to consider.
You wanna, I don't know if we need to.
Sorry if I could.
I think we're going to clarify a few points there that need to be clarified.
To the parking, and this is new to us. You may have missed it in Mr. Noel's presentation. We are eliminating parking mandates in this sector. We are not obliging anybody to build parking in this sector. So that means, and as is common very much elsewhere in Westmount, if you look at the corner of Claremont and Sherbrooke, there are multiple existing older buildings that have a handful of parking spaces, if any at all. A parking space can cost a builder up to $100,000 per unit. We talked earlier about affordable housing. This is one way to make housing more affordable by not obliging a developer. It doesn't mean that they can't, but it means they don't have to.
Please read your draft bylaws. Some of the zoning draft bylaw that you're changing 1303 regarding to parking does include a minimum parking spot. Please review those then.
So, and then I would also just like to, you refer to the tool of the PPC-moi, which for those who don't, I mean, I guess you could call it a spot zoning tool where you would have a zoning variance that was allowed in a certain area, which we have seen on a few projects. But what was, recommended and very clear from all the way back from 2017 was that was not the way to go about this area. This area needed a cohesive vision. It didn't need a spot zoning at every single step. And we knew that the current zoning was not meeting the needs. Nobody can look at that and say the current zoning in place is meeting today's needs and standards. So we took upon the approach with the goals and with revitalizing a neighborhood, making it more vibrant, and making it a community for all. Whether that's, we are absolutely not saying that we don't want families. Of course we want families. You need families in a community. I'm raising a family in this community. I've made the choice to raise a family in this community. But you also need other options. We have an aging community that is going to need somewhere to live. And that is a very real issue that is going to face many people. So if you need to care for an aging parent and you want them to go to St. Margaret's and they're in dire need of a place to go, well, that's going to take you 2 to 3 years to get a bed, to get a room in that place. Manoir Westmount is full. The Liz was full immediately. We hope to be able to keep more people into this community, and welcome newcomers. Next question or comment.
That'll be me. So
Welcome.
much to say, and so little time. But one of the things I would like...
Obviously,
my
I know your
name is Julia
name,
Gersons.
but not everybody does.
I'm sorry. I was staring at the screen. I wanted to say that I'm quite disappointed by the fact that knowing that you were going to be in this room, you presented a screen and a series of slides that only the first 2 rows can read. I'm sorry, Mr. Shami. This is, as you like to say to us, 2025. We have many more audiovisual tools than a simple screen.
Okay, so I apologize if that is a problem for some.
It's been impossible.
So we will put this on our Engage website immediately. And I hope that you're able to look at it there. But we went through several sort of dry runs of how to best to do this. I couldn't do it at City Hall because there's too many of you. So
I think
I don't have the most high-tech room to deal with.
I'm not going into how to improve it.
But
just let's
your
say
comment and suggestion is noted, and we'll make sure that the presentation is accessible right away.
Okay. I'm going to add my voice to those before me who have said that they resent, and I resent, your categorization of the opposition as resistant to change. We all want change, we just don't want this particular plan. And please stop suggesting that we are somehow mired in some previous century.
I don't think I said that. So
I'm not saying you did, Mayor Smith.
Actually, I know I didn't say that. So.
No, but others have more than employed it. We are also not, but you seem to be, channeling the Bland report. You're in effect about to enact what the Bland report suggested in 1960. That council rather blindly listened to them and moved forward by expropriation and demolition. They were only stopped by the architects and citizens who lived in the area south of Dorchester, who just basically forced them to put on the brakes. Otherwise, exactly what we see now north of Dorchester would have existed from Dorchester to the railway tracks. Secondly, architecture does not fix social problems. So if you are expecting that building will suddenly, particularly along St. Catherine Street, will suddenly solve the social problems that are in the area, you are putting the cart before the horse. The next thing to say is zoning sets the stage, and I think it is disingenuous of all of you to pretend that putting in place zoning does not lock the area into a particular set of heights and densities for the future. There will be a lot of money changed hands by people who own lots now and are going to sell them for more money because they are suddenly upzoned. So it is completely disingenuous of all of the council to say this is just really, we're just providing a framework. You are setting the stage, you are telling people the size of buildings, the heights of buildings, the setbacks. You are saying the amount of square footage that can be built, and in 50 years, Mayor Smith, in 50 years of practice, I have never encountered a single developer who says, oh, that's the zoning, I want to build less. They don't do that. If you find that man, give him a hug.
What we aren't, I'll let you finish.
So I think we all have to go into this with eyes wide open. That's what I'm suggesting. Rather than saying that we have a cohesive vision. We don't have a vision here. We have a cohesive set of zoning regulations, but we do not have a cohesive vision of what this area of the city is going to be. Finally, Conrad Pert, who wrote in this recent Westmount Independent, he said, and I'm translating this into more basic English, hubris or excessive pride dictates the future, you said. Humility prepares for it. I think that's a very valid statement. But one of the key aspects of humility is listening, being guided by listening to people. We came to you in several public consultations, in meeting after meeting that the Atwater Library has hosted, and in comments that were published on your website, and we said, Please reduce the density. We do not need a public square. We need greenery more widely disposed a la Westmount everywhere. The final LeMay plan astonishingly increases the density and removes almost all the greenery whatsoever, building on what was going to be your square, but not doing as we asked, that you take that square footage of the square and dispose it around the neighborhood. In fact, putting aside the green roofs, which are a sort of figment of imagination, and putting aside the tree stamping that was done on those drawings, there is almost no greenery. All these buildings are built tight to the property lines, and it is going to be a mineral surface. Again, putting it as an area that is an orphan to the rest of Westmount, and I don't think it deserves that. And the people south of Dorchester don't deserve that, and the people north and west of Dorchester don't deserve that. Thank you.
Next comment or question, if you actually have a next comment.
I
or
do.
Question.
I just resent the fact that I had to follow Julie Gershowitz. I'm Andrew King. I'm a professor of practice. I'm an architect, Westmount residence, and is it on? Sorry? Yeah, I did. Andrew King.
I heard it.
Okay.
Andrew King, an architect and a professor, is what I heard.
Yeah,
Yes.
a colleague of Julia. So we all know we shouldn't follow Julia. She said a lot of the things I'm going to say, so I'm going to keep this really short. I just wanted to point out, I have, as Mr. Black, Chris Black pointed out, we're all a little elderly here, so I've been in this business for a long time. And I've been in many of these meetings. I've presented to many of these. As an architect, I was the author of the master plan for the children's hospital site and a master plan for a few other big developments. I understand this context pretty well, and I understand the urban design strategies. I'm also, from an urban design point of view, really interested in the future of cities and thought leadership in the future of cities. So I'm not really interested in taking a leap of faith, as Mr. Pert, or Councillor Pert suggested. It would be as useful, I think, to just, we all cross our fingers. I think that it would be easier to take a leap of faith if this plan, I was going to get into it in a bit more detail, but I think Julia mentioned some of the finer grain issues I have, but if the plan just had more credibility. The floor plates of the buildings are unreasonable. If you want to get more technical, the floor plates of the buildings are unreasonable.
You mean unreasonably small? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, they're square and too small.
For the four towers on St. Catherine?
100%, yeah.
Okay, I just want to clarify which ones you're talking about are...
Well, they're all a little bit off, but those specifically, they're just unviable.
Okay.
If you want to do affordable housing, nobody's going to build affordable housing in that floor plate. Which means, of course, then the buildings are going to merge and the massing is going to change, and that big architectural wall on St. Catherine's is just going to increase. It's easy to create a vision that creates permeability and nuance, but it's not in the plan at present. The biggest problem I have with the plan is actually not with it's with the plan, but it's also with the presentation of the plan. I know how to create tricky drawings. I've been doing it for a long time, and I used to get paid a lot of money to do it. I used to be, full disclosure, for 7 years I was design principal, so senior partner with LeMay. I'm not now. I know how this stuff works. There was 70% of the green on that plan, which like, oh, look how green that is. 70% of it was on the roofs. That means that 70% of it is inaccessible to the public, only to the buildings, and a lot of that is going to die within the first 2 years. So I think this plan needs more design nuance. It needs the design vision. There's no vision. This is just filling in the density, which the caveat... The caveat is that the fact that we're at a TOD, I was also the design principal for all the REM stations, and I know what a TOD does, and I know that within the city limits, within an existing station, there's non-compliant versions, or the ability to go non-compliant with that work. And I'd be more than happy to come and talk to you about it. So I actually think we need more credibility before we can accept this, and I think my biggest, as a designer, as somebody who's interested in great design, as somebody who tries to do good buildings, good spaces, Angela and I just inaugurated the Place de Montreal downtown. We're interested in that kind of work. I think this needs a design master plan. It needs somebody to look at a nuanced understanding, a good firm that understands urban design, understands building form, and understands that this thing needs to have many, many design visions and design voices in order to create a neighborhood. Thanks.
So, thank you for your comment, your feedback. I also welcome an email from you with maybe some, I've taken notes. I see Councillor Peart has also been taking notes, but I don't believe I've had a communication from you in the past. I'm very happily will accept.
I was in front of the CCU on a project in 4269 just about 4 months ago.
So you would have, that's my colleagues on this side that would have been at the CCU, which as, okay, anyways, we'll just, I'm in the interest of time because I get a sense that people are.
Arlene Kipling, Kitchener Avenue. So I know it's late, so I'm going to get to the point. I was at the public consultation, and I think in all the... Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear myself. So Arlene Kipling, Kitchener Avenue. It's late, so I said I was going to make it quick. I was at the public consultation, and I think all the options included a sports facility. And you referred to something in there, and then you moved away. So is there going to be a sports facility? Because we've been talking about a pool for years.
Yes, and many of you who are looking for an indoor pool within the community, because there are limitations to certainly the Westmount YMCA. I think if you're a swimmer at the Westmount YMCA, we have heard that loud and clear from many people, that there are some challenges with that pool. And we know that there's challenges with Ys across the province of Quebec right now. That's no secret. That's a reality that could very well be facing our community as well. So one of those things that they had, I don't know if we can pull it up on the slide, which we had talked about, is the incentive zoning, which that would fall within there. A sports facility for the community would be seen as a community benefit.
So just to clarify, would there be a pool? Is that the...
That is not to be
goal?
determined. I mean, that would be determined by the next council. A pool obviously comes with huge costs, but huge benefits.
Right.
And huge benefits for 0 to 100. It's not just for kids swimming lessons. It's not just for masters swimmers. I mean, if you look at the programming just in our outdoor Westmount pool, it is truly a mix of the community. Yeah. And that's if you translated that into a year-round pool, you would see a very, very mixed cross-section of the community that uses that.
And it's added value. I just want to say,
but it's expensive.
It's
like nobody should be nobody should be under the.
We will be getting a lot more income, right, in terms of tax revenues.
Presumably.
We're going to be adding, citizens to the population. Yeah. So we are going to need more, and we're busting at the seams at the Y.
Yes, I know that.
And we're busting at the seams at the outdoor pool. So I think it really would be something the community needs.
So thank you for. Yeah. I know there's many citizens who share your enthusiasm and commitment to finally getting a new facility like that in Westmount.
Okay, thank you.
Next question or comment?
Hi, I'm Nicholas Hanna. I'm a resident, and I think there seems to be broad agreement in this room that this area is broken. It has been broken for 65 years, it seems, as long as I can remember. And the thing to do when something is broken is to, in fact, attempt to fix it. Which we have failed to do for 65 years, apparently. So I'm really pleased to see this plan to actually make an attempt to fix it, because I think my perspective is that we live in a context where we have a housing shortage. We live in a context where we have an affordability crisis. And I think what I'm pleased to see as a sort of fairly new, recent resident of Westmount, about 4 years now, is that we actually have the capacity to recognize that there's a problem and not just talk about it, but actually do something about it. Because these problems, this affordability crisis, this shortage of housing, it doesn't get solved at the federal level, it actually gets solved here at this level amongst ourselves with the people in this room, and this has to happen not just here, but all across Montreal and the country. Is this plan perfect? Probably not, but I'd say it's probably within about 90% of the best of what we could expect. And therefore, I think this is reacting to what you said, Sir Architect, in the corner, that I would propose, as a designer as well, we should advance and iterate on it as opposed to pause for further study. Because I think asking for further study is asking for the previous 65 years to repeat and to be staring at surface parking for the next decade. So that is my point of view on this. Thank you. That was not a question, sorry.
Thank you very much for your commentary. So I think just to summarize, you're asking, obviously, if there needs to be iterations or improvements on it, especially in terms of the design aspect and what people can understand, or how we approach that to do that, but not to can the whole thing, which is, okay. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next question. Question.
My name is Edith Katz. I live on Olivier. I've been there 12 years. I've lived and worked in the southeast sector since 1973. So I've seen a lot of change, and I welcome change. I'm looking at two things. One is, one of the reasons I moved here was because it was a walkable neighborhood for services and retail shops, and a lively street life on Green Avenue and St. Catherine, which brings me to my next point. I took a keen interest in the two previous visioning exercises about the southeast sector, and I'm kind of astonished that only part of the southeast sector is being considered in this project. What happened to Green Avenue and the rest of St. Catherine Street and all those poor merchants and service providers who are in terrible difficulty? Some of them are barely afloat. The turnover rate is atrocious, and part of the stated goals of this project was to develop the health of the merchants and service providers in the area, and I don't see that this project is going to do that. So when we're talking about goals, I think density has been overemphasized. I think life and quality of life and communal life is not getting the attention it deserves. Thank you.
So thank you. So if I understand correctly, you would have preferred a broader encompassing of the PPU sector. But what we do believe is that a revitalized area will be very good for Green Avenue and for St. Catherine. We need an area that people want to go to shop, want to have a meal in a restaurant there, and more people in our community to support our local retailers, because we know, I mean, all of our habits have changed of how we experience our retail sector. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll go to the next comment or question.
I just want to start by submitting this memo.
Thank you very much. This is noted. And you'll say your name for the
my name is,
room.
My name is Sora Balabi. I am a resident of Westmount for over 20 years. I'm also one of the property owners on St. Catherine, corner of Atwater and St. Catherine. So first of all, I commend you once again for this difficult task that you have at hand, and I hope that you will succeed. And by succeed, I mean by making a decision. It's important to make a decision now and not kick the can forward. Kicking the can forward is a failure for you and for all of us Westmount residents, business owners. Kicking the can forward, what does it mean? It means another 2 years, 3 years before we sit down and start with a whole new PPU, and then another 2 years to go through this whole process. It's going to be 10 years from now until a building is built. Who knows how many people in this room are even going to be in Westmount at that point? We need action, and we need it now. Making changes to the current plan, something I can understand. The plan is not perfect, and it will never be perfect. People here are opposing it. Even those who are supporting it, as in myself, there are things that need to be changed about it. But we got to sit together and move forward and use what's here now and use the tools to make it as good as possible. Now, I am concerned about some of the points that were brought by Mr. Architect and other people as well, about you're trying to accommodate both groups, and by doing so, you're creating this environment and all these constraints which will make these lots not developable or make it difficult for developers to build them. And one thing I can tell you for sure, we've spoken with my colleagues and we've spoken with the landowners, and unfortunately or fortunately, the revitalization and development of that site starts with the developers, because we're the ones who's going to risk our time, our money, and our future in these projects. And without density, there is no path forward. There's no formula whereby a 5, 6, or 7-story building will generate development. The numbers just don't work. So I commend you, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your document, which we will share, obviously, with all of council. And you have participated in the whole process, been a part of the stakeholder thing, and answered our questions and those tough questions of, you know, why? Why are we here? Why did it get to this point? How did it not get developed? Why wasn't 7 enough? What is the threshold? And you are the building owners. You also have a say in this. So I thank you for participating tonight. Next question or comment?
It's more of a comment. I'm Alexia Winter Reinhold. I live on Dorchester, so this is right in front of my house. I also just wanted to say something from the younger generation, because I feel like everyone else who spoke has a massive age gap from me, and by a lot. But I've grown up here, born and raised on Dorchester, on the corner of Dorchester and Clandeboye. And the main thing that me and my friends, there's a full generation of people my age, and there's a new one that comes every 10 years about. The main thing is the residential vibe of Westmount. And if we wanted to live downtown, there are condos, there are buildings downtown that are available, there are units, it's not all booked up. If that's what we wanted, then we would move there. But I think it's changing the entire essence of Westmount if we're bringing the city over on Atwater. And then where does it stop from there?
So, thank you for your feedback. I don't know if any of the other councillors want to comment, but we understand, you know, one of the main goals and one of the things we had talked about from the very beginning of that was there is this cut at Dorchester. Unfortunately, all those houses were demolished. That's long before anyone who's in this room had anything to do with it.
But I think that was a mistake, and I feel like
we're
making another one.
I agree with you that it was a mistake, and what this plan is trying to do is not bring, you know, we had originally proposed higher, or one of the plans had proposed higher heights on Dorchester to bring it down, to have a more human, livable scale, and to reconnect it so that you're not looking out on a burnt-out parking lot and that you have neighbors.
But that's the whole point. I think everyone here is very extreme. Either, I think we're perceiving it as either build this right now, tomorrow, or wait on it for a long time. I think this plan has to happen now. I've been walking across that parking lot basically since I could walk, so I know the dangers of it, I guess. I'm a woman at the end of the day, so I know how dangerous it can be.
It can be very unsafe in that neighborhood.
Yes,
yep.
But so that's why I think we all agree that we want to change something, but we cannot have massive downtown buildings in a residential area. You have to ask yourself why all you on the council moved here, and I don't think it's because you wanted to live in a high-rise or be surrounded by them.
So, and those high-rises are not being proposed on Dorchester. Do you want to add anything to this?
7 stories is still a lot. It went down from 10. 3 stories, it's like the library. It went from 25 to 20. That's a joke.
Okay. Yeah, your feedback is noted. Do you want to add anything to this?
Am I good to go?
Yeah. Your class dismissed.
I'm proud to say that was my daughter, or is my daughter. My name is Dr. Reinhold. I do live on the corner of Dorchester and Clandeboye, lived in Westmount for 25 years, raised family, still raising them. Very, very busy as a healthcare worker on the front lines with the current shortage of personnel in the hospital. So I've taken the time to come here today, have sat on the consultation meetings, have written to you all.
Yes, and we got your message today. Thank you.
Posted, comments on the website. So, and that's the reason is that this is really, really important, and we all want something done. We don't want, the ball to stop rolling, but we need to have a little bit of a different ball. And I think the changes aren't massive, but the whole point is, as my daughter said and so many others, we're looking to develop a community. We want to live in a community. High rises don't generate that community feeling where we want to talk and walk around. I don't see a lot of people, walking on those platforms at Westmount Square. And part of that is the wind that comes down. I don't know how many of you have walked on Gladstone. We do it all the time. There's times when it's a bit windy, you really, you feel that you're going to be blown away. What's more these high rises with these spaces going to do to this whole area? Is this going to be conducive to people going to cafes, or you're just going to be blown away by some of the wind tunnels? So again, green space we're looking for, but it needs to be spread around. Another park, I don't think we need, but we need green space, and we're shrinking St. Catherine, but having huge buildings on either side, because we have Alexis Neon, we're building tall buildings, and we want to shrink that street. That reminds me of the canyon feeling that we have downtown, but that's not Westmount. That's not going to make us want to be out, take our children to the park, our grandchildren, I hope one day. We want community. We want housing. When the developers tell us it's not worth it, I look at the beautiful development not long ago that was made just to the west of Atwater, right opposite the badminton club. Beautiful, not high rises. I don't see, none of them are vacant, but if we look at the towers at the Children's Place, yes, the vacancy is there. So I think we really need to think about what we're doing. And I and hundreds of voices were on the website, and we feel that we're not being heard, but we live there. Many of those voices were in that community. So I beg all of you, this is our community. You all live in Westmount. I pay a lot of taxes, and I'm happy to contribute. I'm a real law-abiding citizen, but we live there. This is going to affect us more than anybody else.
I understand that. You're
right?
facing it. So, okay. Thank you for your feedback.
My name is John Breslau. I live on Grosvenor. I'm a professor emeritus of economics at Concordia University.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. The general consensus here is obviously height. And this was indeed the overall consensus for the 426 comments that we had for the online questionnaire. 78 to 82% of the comments were concerns about the height of the LeMay project. In fact, only 5% of the respondents approved of the project. There were many other things, swimming pools, but height is clearly the concern. All right. Closer to the mic, absolutely. Absolutely. Madam Mayor, you, Council, have proposed a concept. You're saying, we've not had development on this land. It's been there for 10, 15, 20 years. And without this type of zoning change, developers are not prepared to commence projects. That's a hypothesis. It's a perfectly reasonable hypothesis. And like most hypotheses, it's testable. So let's test it. In 2012, Ville de Montréal went and rezoned a number of downtown streets. And they rezoned them from a permissible height of 25 meters to 35 meters, about 115 foot. Since then, there have been a number of projects that have happened within that zoning control. Currently, under construction, we have 1197 Crescent, 1176 Bishop, 1205 de la Montagne. All these are 35-meter, between 10 and 12 floors, and between 66 and 251 units. The statement, developers will not build unless it is zoned 20 floors, 217 foot or more, is demonstrably false. If a developer can profitably build 10 floors on Bishop Street today, then they can do so on St. Catherine. Indeed, they had the opportunity to do so on St. Catherine because the southeast end of St. Catherine is currently zoned 10 stories, the far corner. The fact that they didn't build over the last 10 years, but they do build on Bishop Street, is the question that we have to confront. Why is it that they can construct there but not construct here? There are possibly three solutions to that. One is the building high-rises, views are important. The view there is terrible. On the back, you have the back of the Reddy Hospital across the lane. On the front, you have the line of Alexis Neon Plaza, a wall along St. Catherine Street. The depth of the lot is poor. It's small. After setback, it's 90 foot. That doesn't give you a lot of ability to build profitably. And, of course, there's the question of zonage. Montreal stuck to its zonage. Westmount, we have had discussion with the Agile report, now with the LeMay report, on changing the zonage. And as a number of people have suggested, developers will see the situation and say, fine, we can wait until they go and increase the zonage, which of course is what is now happening. In economic terms, we have a word for that. It's called you are being played. But there are two, let's look at this project for a second. You have the housing on the north of Dorchester, Nodo, and you have the towers on St. Catherine. These are the main projects. The latter, the tower on St. Catherine, are not going to happen.
So I would just encourage you to be, I'm going to let you finish, but I would encourage you to be mindful of the time and the lineup behind you and the fact that we seem to be losing quite a few attendees.
Thank you, Mayor.
Not because of you, Mr. Breslov, but...
The latter, the building of these high-rises, is not going to happen. The condo market is dead. If you read the CMHC report today, it described very clearly why you're not going to have more condos built. And to go and service these condos, you have to go and provide electricity, water, sewage. Your office today gave me the information this morning that there are capacity constraints in terms of provision of hydro in the southeast sector. We had the capacity with when the children's hospital didn't take it.
We provided the electricity to the children's.
A lot of it has been used elsewhere in Westmount.
And we don't provide the electricity to Alexis Neon. That is done by Hydro-Quebec.
Yeah, right.
So it's a it's not a yes or no, you can't turn on the lights situation.
Yes, but we don't have enough electricity for both parts of this project, i.e. St. Catherine and north of Dorchester. So let me suggest that we put the St. Catherine component on hold while a proper economic study is carried out as to why the development did not occur. Because of the glut of condos, we have the time to undertake such a study. That's the first part. The second part is, let's go ahead with the housing project on the north side of Dorchester. That has support. That has general community support. The project has to go and integrate with the housing
sorry to
on the
interrupt,
other side.
sir. If you can just wrap it up, because it's already...
I'll be one more minute.
Okay, because we're already, I think, at 9 minutes.
Right, and that...
So we do need to wrap it up, Mr.
We have the
Breslov.
architects to do it, and we have architects who have a demonstrated commitment to heritage. Getting in place a project that has housing, affordable housing, family housing, which can be done by the architectural talent that we have here in Westmount, that has heritage knowledge is something that would be a legacy for this council that would be amazing to see. So my statement is
Mr.
really
Breslau.
simple. Split the project, get that bit done first, the housing, worry about the second.
Okay, thank you for your feedback and your suggestion. Next question or comment?
Chantal Pagé de la rue Green.
Bienvenue.
Merci. 3 petits points rapidement. Alors,
Je pense que le micro, il faut baisser le micro un petit
faut
peu.
le baisser comme ça. OK.
Est-ce que c'est correct pour tout le monde? C'est bon pour moi, mais...
C'est bon?
Oui.
OK. Alors, moi, j'avais une question qu'on a soulevée un petit peu plus tôt. Place Gladstone, le vent. Ce sera impossible de s'asseoir là et ça va être tellement venteux, même marcher, traverser la place, ça va être difficile. Quand ils ventent au coin de Green et Sainte-Catherine, on a de la difficulté à se tenir au coin. Alors, une place comme ça, dès qu'il y a du vent, l'automne, l'hiver, le printemps, s'il y a de la glace en plus, on est tout le monde sur le cul, ça ne marchera pas. Ça fait que ça, c'est un truc. Il faudrait donc faire une étude sur le vent.
Oui.
Ça a l'air niaiseux, mais je crois que c'est pratico-pratique et sécuritaire. Deuxième point, sur la rue Sainte-Catherine, agrandir les trottoirs, diminuer la largeur des rues, c'est bien, mais on parle de stationnement. Pourquoi pas faire comme en Europe et tout simplement, au lieu de stationner les voitures une après l'autre à la queue leu-leu, pourquoi pas tout simplement les stationner de travers? Comme un peu parallèle. Je sais que c'est... Mais s'ils arrivent en Europe, pourquoi nous, on ne serait pas capables?
OK, merci pour la
mon
suggestion
deuxième
et les
point.
commentaires.
Troisième point, parce que ce soir, vous parliez de densité, donc maintenant, il y a des règles qu'il faut respecter. Le hectare là, en question autour de la station Atwater, je n'ai pas entendu parler du terrain au coin de Dorchester et Atwater. L'ancienne église Saint-Stephen.
Oui, mais ça fait pas part du PPU, mais maintenant.
Ça fait pas partie du périmètre. Ben, c'est quand même pas mal plus proche que.
Oh, oui, c'est l'autre côté
Green.
du rue, c'est sûr, c'est dans le milieu, mais c'est pas dans la zone PPU.
Non, je comprends, mais ça fait partie quand même du périmètre. Ça fait quand même, c'est à l'intérieur de l'hectare. Si on parle de périmètre par rapport à la station Atwater, je crois que si on considère ce terrain-là qui va être construit, si on considère aussi l'autre terrain, l'autre lot qui est sur Dorchester, un petit peu à l'ouest de Green, ça fait 2 endroits où il va y avoir de la construction et ça permet, dans le calcul, de diminuer les étages pour ceux qui veulent réduire un petit peu les étages. C'est dans une logique mathématique.
Monsieur No, est-ce que vous avez une réponse à ça? Puis on va passer à la prochaine.
Bonsoir, Mme Pagé. C'est une excellente question. Pourquoi la limite du PPU s'est arrêtée à Dorchester? Pour le cas du site que vous mentionnez,
il y en a 2 sites.
Notamment Saint-Stephens. Il y avait un projet de construction qui est en analyse, donc qui est une demande qui est en cours depuis quelques années. Récemment, le permis a été émis. Donc,
mais ça peut rentrer dans le calcul de la densité pour le 480 unités.
C'est qu'à partir du moment qu'une demande est reçue et traitée, on a des limites à ce qu'on peut renverser sur une demande initiale.
Non, mais il y a quand même, ne serait-ce que 10 unités, bien, ça fait quand même un étage ou 2 étages d'un building qui viennent diminuer. Pour les gens qui veulent que ce soit plus bas, bien, ça serait pratique de
peut-être que si
utiliser.
la demande n'avait pas été ouverte, oui, c'est ça, avant qu'on débute le PPU, possiblement, peut-être que ça aurait pu être inclus, mais étant donné que la demande était en cours, c'était, je dirais, non pertinent, malheureusement peut-être, de l'inclure.
Un dernier point, puis cette question-là de densité, étant donné la particularité de Westmount, ce ne serait pas quelque chose qu'on pourrait contester? Carrément, c'est une ville qui a un cachet très particulier. On pourrait peut-être voir s'il n'y a pas moyen de contester la chose. Enfin, j'en sais.
Merci. Well, next question or comment?
Good evening. It's quite an evening, okay, and the tension in the room and the expression of interest.
We know your name, but if you could just state your name for the room and for the record.
Thank you. Robert Cohen. I have a long time experience in affordable housing in Montreal and elsewhere. So I speak from that point of view in particular. I think we all agree that St. Catherine Street is unkempt, dirty, squalid. Something has to be done. There's no doubt about that. Dangerous as well, okay? People are afraid to walk there. We all agree that affordable housing on Dorchester North, between Tupper Avenue, Atwater, Dorchester, Green, can be planned and developed in the short term on city-owned property. My remarks and question will focus primarily on the issue of affordable housing and the opportunity that's there. Working together, and I said this previously, and I still believe that, and notwithstanding the kind of conversation we're having this evening, which is difficult in many ways, I'm sure for people across in front of me to have to listen to that, as well as the people who are doing their best efforts also. But we're at that point in time, so what do we do with that? Well, I think that we can, together, achieve consensus and obtain a broad-based social acceptance between the private and community sectors. There's a lot of talent in Westmount and in this very room that's recognized with expertise who live here in architecture, urban planning, heritage properties, affordable housing, consultation, and consensus building. And together, I think we can find a solution that we all agree on. Canada Mortgage Housing and CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, recognizes officially in all around analysis, and I've spoken directly to them, their economists recently, that the downtown development is at a standstill for an indeterminate period of time. Notwithstanding the idea of going quickly and cleaning up St. Catherine Street, there's no money for that now, okay? The money just isn't available, and we don't know for how long. The developers and investors are renting and selling at a loss. This is CMHC that's saying this. Developers are reducing the losses, not by reducing the rent, but by giving three free months across the street in the Children's Hospital and elsewhere downtown. The money just isn't there now. The LeMay report was prepared for another time and another economy. The housing boom of the last 20 years has ended because of construction costs, because of higher mortgage rates, because of job losses, because of food and fossil fuel inflation. We will overcome the Trump tariffs, but the reorientation of the Canadian economy will take time. We don't know how long this is going to take, but we've probably got several years in front. We have a federal government that's trying to get one economy out of 13 territories and provinces, and they're probably going to succeed in doing that to a very large extent. And they're going to reorient the economy so that we're less dependent on the Americans. But it's a whole new reality that we've been very fortunate in the last 30, 40 years after the Second World War not to have to live. But we're moving into a new age. And to try and come up with solutions that are based on a housing boom and what happened across the street at the Children's is no longer the case. So what do we do with that, okay? Whether you go forward or not, it's going to happen anyway, okay? It just isn't going to happen. It's fine to say let's build because it's there and it's time to do it, but it isn't going to happen on St. Catherine Street. So the real opportunity is Dorchester. I'm coming there. Okay, because I'm just mindful of there's many people behind you. I will not speak long. I promise, okay? And I should add now that the Community Metropolitan de Montreal, okay, the umbrella organization for all this with 82 municipalities there, they have just passed a program in which they require that all future development, it's required all future development done in the metropolitan area should have at least 20% affordable housing. I think it could be a lot more. But there is a requirement now that didn't exist. If you look at the statistics of Montreal, there's 65,000 units of social, cooperative, and public housing. Of that, 63,000 units were done in the city of Montreal. There's 141 units, 65,000 units, 141 units that are in Westmount. I think the Dorchester is really an opportunity on city-owned land in terms of costs, in terms of being able to do it quickly. Because you own the land, we can move quickly.
Okay, so to conclude.
I'm going to conclude that.
But the gist of it is that you are asking
Madam
for.
Mayor, my question is addressed to you, okay, and your colleagues. Will you support and encourage a community-driven process, working closely with Westmount officials to plan and develop affordable housing on the city-owned land? A community-driven process.
So so just so everybody's clear, the city-owned land, you're referring to the Tupper parking lots. So I just want everybody to.
You own on both sides of. You own on both sides.
Yeah, we own on both sides. So that is the land.
Three lots which can be used for affordable housing.
2 lots that can be used for affordable housing.
Well, on your latest plan, on the latest LeMay plan, there are 3 lots.
Part is privately owned, but we definitely.
No, the fourth piece is privately owned, but there are 3 plots. There are 2 plots, I think, on the west side of Gladstone, and on the east side there's another lot, all of which are parking lots that you actually own now.
Okay, so you're.
We're talking about the same thing. 2 or 3 doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
yeah. And I just want the room to understand that the request is affordable housing in that area, and low density is presumably what you're asking.
We're talking about 3 to 7 stories.
3 to 7 stories. Which is, so sticking to the current plan of 3 with a setback to 7.
The community-driven process is to get everyone around the table, discuss it, and come up with a solution. With all due respect for all the efforts, it is the table, but there's a process there because it hasn't happened now. There's too much division in the room. What I'm suggesting is that we can do that. We can do that on a gradual basis within 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is. There will be a consensus in the community what to do. That's what I say.
Okay, so I am taking your request, but I'm not going to give. I can't speak on behalf of all of council, but it is certainly something that we will review. And just to go back to just federal and provincial, and the tie to our money and our funding is going to be very linked to housing and densification. And when we look at our tech funding, that will be very linked to densification in our area. We know that. That's being given any indication. If you listen to what the new Prime Minister is saying, this money is going to come with strings attached to it. And those strings are going to be to build, and to build quickly and to densify. Certainly in urban areas. So I think we also have to be very realistic of what that global context is as well. But I thank you for your point. It's all very noted. It is something that Councillor Aronson has raised a fair bit of how we can integrate it in a very, and nobody wants to do lip service to it. I believe in it. I believe heavily in accessibility of housing, in particular. I think our seniors are facing a housing crisis that is unique and different, and I see I live it, and our youth across the spectrum from both ends. But I know the importance of being able to access the housing. So I thank you for your feedback, Matt. Do you want to add anything to this quickly? Because I will be here. If it keeps going,
I'll just say
we have another hour now.
It's families, seniors, and seniors they need support. Okay,
yes,
that we should focus on.
So,
okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually did want to just ask Mr. Cohen to make sure we're clear on what we're discussing here. What you are proposing, what you're discussing in terms of the vision from a zoning perspective, is what has in fact been proposed in terms of the size, the height and the density for a project on the city-owned Tupper lots. So I just want to make sure we're reading you correctly. Are you saying that you would be in favor of this proposal for the Tupper lots area, the Dorchester area, but that you would like to see, and I think you've got a lot of support in this area, that the plan as developed here would be something that would be developed by the city in conjunction with a community-driven, perhaps nonprofit organization to deliver affordable housing in our community. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm suggesting is, and we'd be very much like to be part of the process. We'll
Yes.
sit down with people, and that will answer your question. You should, not to ask me the answer to it. I think that you've gone a long way in relation to that area, but suddenly you have densified more than it was there before. I can't speak to the Batshaw and the YMCA, okay, in relation to that, because you include that and you put 10 stories there. So
I think we can
Okay,
continue
but
we will continue our
What I'm
conversation.
suggesting is that you support that kind of whatever, and however long it takes. It's maybe once every couple of weeks we meet, whatever it is. Okay, but in a short time, we will have a consensus by people in this area, I believe.
Right. So
that's what we work for. That's what we work for together.
Okay. So I'm glad to hear that. The mayor asked me to just comment very briefly, so I'll say this. One of the things that we've been thinking about a lot as we bring forward this plan is finding a diversity of solutions.
And diversity of people and needs.
We have a community that has all sorts of different needs, and we are trying our best to find the best solutions to bring affordability and attainability to the community to meet the demands of a diverse population. So we've been looking at all sorts of different permutations of how that might work, and I welcome your commentary. And I think that those of us who have to make decisions around this thing I can speak, I hope, for all of us, and we are listening. I know that I am not the only councillor who is deeply concerned about the access to housing in this neighborhood for all of the different stages and phases of life for our community and for people who aren't yet residents here. So, in short, we are listening to you, and we want to continue this dialogue. This is exactly why we're having this kind of planning process, and I thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you. So I'm mindful that we are at the 3-hour mark, and if we keep along the same track, we have at least another hour of questions.
I'll keep it very short.
So
My name's Julie Wang, and I come as an advocate for the Atwater Library. I'm a recent newcomer to Montreal, and I use the library at least once or twice a week. And your high-rises, which I think is what's scaring most of the people in this room, are just simply going to devastate the library. There will be way too much shade, there will be way too much wind, and it's what? That's not the point. You cannot have a building that thrives. A building is a living thing. It has to have light and sunshine and greenery around it, and it is a beautiful building, and you will destroy it.
So, thank you.
And one tiny question, one more addition. A high-rise is not creating a community. People do not talk to each other in their elevators. They do not know each other. They do not reach out to each other. Thank you.
So thank you for your commentary. I think the people of One Wood might disagree. The people who live in Westmount Square might disagree. And I think what we had seen in the first iteration has changed a little bit to give more space to the Atwater Library. But wouldn't it be wonderful to have more users of the Atwater Library if we sort of flip the narrative about that a little bit and have more people supporting it and supporting this wonderful, this institution that has a long history within our community. So, and we hope for it to have a long future as well. Next question.
David
or
Hanna,
comment.
former professor of urban planning. I would like to just comment on two aspects. One is this density figure of 480 housing units per hectare, which I don't think is at all understood, obviously. And the second one is the visioning criticism. So just briefly, could we just look at the density?
Do you want to go back? Do you want me to put the slide up?
No need for it, no.
Okay.
I think Mr. No said very clearly, 480 dwelling units per hectare is the norm. It's the legal norm. I want to make that very clear. You can't go below that, which most of what I'm hearing
on the new and developable sites. Yes,
exactly.
We have an obligation.
Any new development in this TOD as mandated by the CMM, which, by the way, I did have an opportunity to work on back in 2012, mandates that density, whether we like it or not. All right, it is true. That's how it works. I know, because I work all around the city on urban projects. We're in a TOD, and that is the norm you have to meet. To give you some idea of what these figures mean, Clandeboye and Columbia are 40 dwelling units per hectare. If you look over to Hochelaga with its rows and rows of triplexes packed together, that's 200 dwelling units per hectare. We're not even at half yet. If we get to our high-rises on Clark and de Maisonneuve, we now get to 290 dwelling units per hectare. We're still nowhere near the 480. So I'd like people to just wrap their minds around this figure and understand that 480 dwelling units per hectare is massive, and we don't have the choice anymore. Previous administrations, I guess, tried, but nothing happened. You know it. It's 60 years now I've lived with this. Nothing's happened. So we have to act, and we are confined in how we can act. Now I'd like to move to the visioning aspect. I would like to commend our urban planning people for the incredible work they've put in to make this Westmount. Because what have they done for us? They have tried to deal with these massive densities, and they have put 3-story podiums everywhere, so that on Dorchester we have 3-story housing on Dorchester. Do you realize what a gift that is in a landscape that is zoned for 480? Sure, stacked housing behind it goes up to 7. Yes, there are towers on St. Catherine Street, but there are 3-story podiums around it, which pushes these towers hopefully back, maybe not enough, but they push them back so you will not be quite as aware of them as, you know, if they were right up on the street. You will only see the 3-story podiums. That's the gift that they have created and done that. And they've gone further. They have created openings here and there, which reduce the density. Don't forget that. Every park, every opening you create means you got to go higher somewhere else. And far from being a windswept area, Gladstone Square will be 3 stories, just in the immediate vicinity. It'll be a quiet oasis, and there are also other openings here and there. The heritage area around Gladstone and St. Catherine is preserved. And I'd like you to look at the plan and see what they have proposed for St. Catherine Street. It's unbelievably people-friendly now. The pavement bounces up at one point, shrinks down, changes in paving, sidewalks widen. It will be full of people. The revitalization potential for St. Catherine is immense if that vision gets through. And so on and so on. Look at the traffic pattern plan for Dorchester. It is wonderful how incredibly people and nature friendly it is. I would just like to change the paradigm to something more realistic and to recognize the incredible effort the planning department has done and the courage of your council in moving this forward in its best way possible. It has to be done, folks, okay? Thank you very much.
So, thank you for your commentary, your feedback, and full disclosure, Mr. Hanna, who is also a member of the Planning Advisory Committee, which many of you probably are aware of if you've had to go through the permitting process. He is a member of the PAC. So he has had the opportunity to review, comment, make changes along the way as well. So he's very familiar with the project. But I thank you for your commentary and your feedback on that one. Next question or comment.
Mark Boretsky, I live on de Maisonneuve Boulevard. 2 questions. I attended a city council meeting in May where we talked about the infrastructure that would be required, sewers, water, and especially electrical power. It was stated that it would be in the tens of millions of dollars. And I'm wondering if the economic studies have been done yet to show if the tax revenue will be able to pay for that investment. So it hadn't been done at all at that time, at that city council meeting. Has it been done now, or will it be done in the near future?
We have begun, we certainly have some studies, and obviously a lot more will need to be done. Whether we do nothing and leave the zoning as is, as 7 stories, and hope that something happens, that street requires a massive amount of infrastructure. So like it or not, the entire water network. The road needs to be rebuilt. The sewers, there's been major leaks and problems on the corner of St. Catherine. So do nothing, don't do anything, and we're already in the tens of millions of dollars.
A second question, there are two other metro stations close to Westmount, Vendôme and Villa Maria. If land were to become available 5, 10, 20 years from now, would we still have this new zoning of 480 units per hectare and 20 stories near those subway stations?
Yeah, so I will let Mr. No answer. It's a technical question, which we have obviously looked at, and we know about the super Todd. So, Mr. No?
Good evening. It's another excellent question. The other two third areas that touches Westmount are not in the hypercenter. It's not central metro station. So the density thresholds are different. And because we're doing this exercise separately from the total planning program, we do not address the modification for those two third areas. It will be in the future because we will have to renew the planning program, but it's not now. And we already know that since this June, the adoption of the PMAD, this is not the same density threshold for what is not hypercenter TODs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next question or comment?
Mike Mossop, Columbia Avenue.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Just first a comment and a question towards you. I'd just like to point out, it just feels like deja vu. 8 years ago, we did something similar for Dorchester. Many contentious issues with, like changing, changing the length or the squeezing in the Dorchester. General public didn't like it. Development across Dorchester on the parking lot, people didn't like it, as well as the change of the curvature of Clark into Dorchester, people didn't like it. So
it's a bit of a theme.
Yeah, I know, but exactly. But what I see here now, after 8 years, we came back to the same conclusion, and it seems like the public, right now, I haven't heard any contentious or feedback that actually people are supporting the development of the parking lot. So my perspective is that if we do not push this through, we're going to waste another 8 years and we're going to get into a same conclusion. So that's my perspective, but I know there's valid points of, are we going to be able to, fill those apartments or condominiums? But I really feel like if we don't push now, what's going to happen is we're going to waste money, time, and after that, we're going to be stuck in the same boat 8 years. What makes me really I really enjoyed your presentation on the identification requirements and stuff. And just a personal question towards you two, because I know you did a lot of op-eds with the Westmount Independent. I feel like if we started with that is the requirement, that we have a restriction of, instead of figuring out, are we going to do a one-way in Dorchester, are we going to put a pool and that stuff? If we actually started that process of saying, look, we're bounded with this requirement, what's the best solution? I feel like we didn't bring that on the table at the beginning, and I really feel like then after that you would have a better consensus. It's not a criticism because I really think we need to push this through, but the thing is, why didn't you guys bring this up at the get-go? I think this would help your case, actually.
So thank you for your comment. And this is, we see this in the public consultations a lot, whether it be for, this is a massive public consultation or on a smaller street, where it's challenging. We raise it in terms of density, but I don't know if it's like the same thing on, let's use Fordham as an example. Sidewalks actually have to be a certain width at this point. They can't be built to 1940 standards. They have to be built to today's standard, and there's a certain width. Yeah. And we come forward, we go to a public comment, ask people what they want on their street, and then we didn't make it clear enough, but hey, guess what? You're not actually getting that because the sidewalks have to be this wide. So maybe we needed to come in with less blank slate and a little more tough love,
Yeah,
basically.
Honestly, because with the, like Dorchester, I always thought, okay, is it going to be a green space? Like, I'm for development, and I'm just saying that when it came up, like, great, we're back to square
So the
one.
you would have preferred, and it was there, but maybe it wasn't clear enough. And it is, if you don't know anything about how zoning works and things like that, it's a complicated issue of how many units per in the area and what are the requirements. And, you know, maybe lots of residents have no idea what the CMM is or a PMAD or what it all stands for. So it's, I take your feedback in terms of just the consultation on it and the requirements. And we certainly have time to better communicate that.
No, it's lessons learned, and thank you very much.
Okay.
Conrad, good speech at the beginning.
But you're right. This is a issue that you were very involved in the Provence-Roy, like when that unfolded, and that was tough. Like that was very divisive in the community. And this is not surprising. Look at open a La Presse, and you will find in every city across the island, every borough, where there are these issues of development and bringing in new residents and how you go about it, whether it's in a PPU or if it's a zoning change, and how, I mean, if just follow the story in Verdun on Ile des Sœurs, where 26 people were able to block that, and then it had to be overridden by, there's change is coming, there is densification that is coming, there is housing that is being built. The cities are evolving. And certainly in urban areas. And we are a built city, and I would just reiterate in this project and what we're proposing, there is no destruction of, or no demolition. We've seen that in the past. We've seen how many houses were demolished to build Westmount Square? 100 and...
I think at least 45 buildings or so.
Yeah, so like a huge block of Victorian era row houses demolished. Dorchester, demolished. We're not seeing that here. What we're seeing is building on parking lots, building on empty lots on St. Catherine Street and underutilized lots, but they're not, and we're protecting and we believe in the heritage value of the buildings in the area. So thank you. Have to be mindful of time if I'm asking you to be. So next question or comment.
My name is Brian Puddington. I live on Lansdowne Avenue.
Welcome.
And being mindful of time and seeing the length of the line behind me, I have one simple question. Professor Luca, who teaches at McGill, has said that the 480 density is aspirational, is the way he put it. And then tonight, Mr. Hanna and you have said it's not aspirational, it is required by law. And my question is just, can I get a clarification on that?
Monsieur No?
Absolutely. The PMAD was the reviewed PMAD, Plan Metropolitan d'Aménagement from the CMM, was adopted on June 9. So it's brand new, it's brand newly adopted. So this is the first draft of a process to have a final reviewed version of the PMAD. This is the official document. We knew that before June 9, of course, but this is a long process, discussions between the municipality, the boroughs, the agglomeration, and the CMM relating to the set of the threshold. So this is, for those who believe maybe it's not exact, please go to the facts, go to the official document that is newly adopted on June 9. This is where you will have your reference. But I can confirm
So it is law, it is cast in concrete, it must be done?
Yes. Well, we can discuss about this, but sir,
you're the expert. Is it the law or isn't it?
Thank you. Yes,
because
this is the law.
That's been a principal
part
of the discussion this evening, and a really important part of this whole development. And is it the law or is it not? I think is pretty crucial to this whole discussion.
He gave a clear answer. Thank you. Next question or comment?
Yeah, Hi, thank you. My name is Mike Lee. I'm on Stainer. So thanks for the hard work. I know a lot of people here put in and a lot of comments that come through. I'll be pretty quick. I was also kind of curious about the density and how that all fit in. For background for myself, I'm an engineer and also MBA, and I did work in development a while ago, but in Vancouver, and I came to these kinds of meetings. I was actually on the side of the developers when I was there, so I've seen how this is from the other side. And one thing I'll just be clear, and I've heard this a couple comments here, is that the developers are going to make money. It's just a question of how much you're valuing the land for. You know, if you live a block away and you have a two-story building, you can still sell that for probably $2 million or close to that today. So, you know, they're going to make money. It's just a question of, you know, how much and how much the land is being held out for. So that's perhaps, I'd like to kind of, you know, just put that out there because I kind of see people, oh, they can't make money unless it's so many stories. I'm not convinced. I would be surprised if that was truly the case. Second point is the parking. So we're putting up all these high rises, the parking in the areas. There's already pressure on the parking. You know, there's going to be, Westmount is an area where people are generally well off. There's a lot of cars. I know there's going to be some seniors we'll put in there that perhaps aren't driving, but a lot of people will be. So this is going to start putting pressure on the area. Question around there, is there like are we going to look at putting a parking area, parkade somewhere, or is that not?
It certainly, as what they're talking about is not putting in a maximum, is taking away the minimum parking requirements.
Okay.
But there's also in your area, and I know that you get a lot of RCMP parking. You get a lot of people that want to drive there and then go downtown from there, leave their car, whatever. Obviously, we can play with. We've done it in other areas of the city where you can change parking requirements, permit parking only, resident only parking, and things like that. And obviously, that would be looked at.
Yeah. I mean, is there going to be any kind of minimum parking, or just some of these buildings might have no parking at all? And you know, the buildings like we recently renovated, we have to move downtown. The buildings, a lot of the new buildings downtown, they have a lot of underground parking. Like
they have a lot of unused underground parking.
They're heavy parking. All these residential buildings have a lot of parking.
So they were a lot of those Montreal towers, and if you speak to the owners, you speak to the people that are living in them, they had minimum parking requirements. So each unit had to have one car or one slot in the underground parking garages, and they found that they were highly underutilized. And so there has been a push, and cities across North America are doing this, is taking away the minimum requirement.
Okay.
And to have it adjust more. And obviously there's going to be buildings. If you look at a building like on Green Avenue, 1250 Green, obviously you're not going to build 1250 Green and not have parking.
Right.
The residents of that building require probably 2 parking spots, not 1. So it meets the needs of that building.
Would it, just an idea, would it make sense to maybe lower it, but not completely eliminate it, just so there is, make sure there's some parking in there?
So the tendency, as the mayor said, across North America is to not be so prescriptive, to think that we know exactly how much parking is going to be required. It's going to be the person or the developer or the team that decides what they need. And it also means that they can build as little or as much as they need. And there is an ability, for instance, to do what, in Toronto, where there are a lot of public accessible parking spots in private properties. That could happen here too. So,
like at Westmount Square.
Like at Westmount Square. So it's not about definitively saying a building has to have X amount of X amount of parking, because that may result in a builder building too much parking and then adding the cost of that building, and that cost is distributed across all of the other units.
Yeah, I still think that there should be just, my thoughts is that some kind of comment, some kind of dialogue, at least the developers have thought through it. Having, again, worked in this field, you know, maybe I would just make sure there's some kind of dialogue. If you don't put a minimum, there's some kind of thing. It's just my suggestion.
So
Excellent point.
parking concerns is an excellent point to raise.
Yeah,
Thank you.
The last thing I'll say is just overall, like people come to Westmount. I heard a lot of comments. People come to Westmount for family, for the greenery and all that. The area we're putting in, there's not going to be much greenery. And I even found the pictures and the sketches. Some of the sketches look like the trees may be almost like 6 or 7 stories high because they did them at angles. There's not a lot of greenery. It'd be nice if it was a little closer to representative.
So you would like more greenery. So obviously there's essentially in that area, there's no greenery right now. So you would like the plan as shown to have more greenery than that's currently there.
Yeah, that's just one suggestion.
Okay.
And, again, I'm not going to repeat what a lot of people say, but the density, I don't believe.
You have concerns about the density.
The density is high. I know there's some requirements that are being debated as to what exactly it's going to be and all these things, but I don't know the details on that. But I think that the density certainly is a concern. You're going from, 2-story, 3-story, 7, 20. It's exponential.
Sorry, sir, if you can wrap up your question, because we still have some people over.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm all done.
So thank you. I think we got your points, parking, greenery, and density.
Yes, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for your work.
Next comment, question?
Bon. Egor Matveyev, présentement sans domicile. Pour mon commentaire, on va garder ça simple.
Le nom, c'est
Egor, E-G-O-R. Egor Matveyev. Je n'ai pas pu être présent pour le début de la séance en personne parce qu'il fallait que je visite des appartements pour me trouver une place à louer. La raison pour cela est que samedi dernier, mon appart ainsi que 25 autres unités ont complètement brûlé dans un incendie à Saint-Henri. Je pensais venir et avoir une intervention plus diplomatique, mais après ce qui s'est passé samedi, la patience pour des niaiseries, j'en ai plus. On est dans une crise de logement. Je suis sûr qu'il y a des gens dans mon édifice qui auront une augmentation de loyer de $100, $200, même peut-être $500 par mois. La raison pour cela est simple. Le manque physique du nombre d'espaces dans lesquels les gens vivent. Quand le gaz est trop cher, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? On en produit beaucoup. Quand la nourriture est trop chère, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? On en produit beaucoup. Quand tout autre bien est trop cher, tout le monde comprenne qu'on doit en produire plus, beaucoup plus. Ce plan, littéralement, va permettre 200 de mes édifices à se loger. J'entends qu'il faut faire des compromis. Le temps qu'il fallait faire des compromis était il y a 20 ans. Ce plan est littéralement un compromis. Parce que si on était sérieux par rapport à combler la crise de logement, l'entièreté du secteur serait 20 étages. On vous a donné des basilaires partout. On vous a donné des ouvertures. On vous a réduit les hauteurs comparées au plan initial. À un moment donné, il faut être prêt à reconnaître que la façon dont les choses étaient ne fonctionne plus et qu'il faut permettre à des voisins à habiter à côté de chez vous. J'ai littéralement visité des appartements dans les tours de l'autre côté d'Atwater aujourd'hui, avant de venir ici. Je suis le genre de personne qui pourra habiter sur Sainte-Catherine ou Dorchester. Ne voulez-vous pas que je sois votre voisin?
Oui, vous êtes bienvenu.
Heureusement, moi personnellement, je suis bien nanti. J'ai l'opportunité d'avoir une bonne job, une bonne famille, une copine, une blonde qui m'aide dans tout ce processus. Mais je ne suis pas sûr que c'est la même chose pour les locataires des 25 autres unités. Je ne sais pas qu'est-ce qu'ils feront quand des gens font tout pour bloquer les endroits où ils vont vivre.
Merci. Merci pour vos commentaires, pour la réalité que vous vivez. C'est important que les gens connaissent ça aussi, que c'est pour les jeunes dans notre communauté, c'est la vie maintenant. Donc, merci beaucoup pour les commentaires. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres gens qui veulent...
Est-ce qu'il y a des gens qui peuvent m'expliquer pourquoi ils veulent bloquer des endroits où je pourrais vivre? Quelqu'un dans la salle?
C'est pas à moi d'expliquer. Je pense que vous avez entendu beaucoup ce soir des gens qui veulent qu'il n'y a pas des logements si nombreux dans le coin, mais on vous entend, c'est sûr. Merci beaucoup. Merci d'être placé ce soir. Merci.
Henry Olders, Lansdowne Avenue.
Welcome.
I'm a little mystified about the reference to 480 dwellings per hectare as the legal requirement. I'm looking at the CMM website, and they have a document published this year about guide d'aménagement pour les aires de TOD, which is what we're talking about. And they have several levels of TOD. The one with the highest requirement, highest density requirement for the city center of Montreal, it says densité minimale brute de 80 à 150
Je pense que
logements per hectare.
juste plus proche au micro. Je pense qu'il y a des gens en
sorry.
arrière.
Okay, so it calls for a minimal density of 80 to 150 dwellings per hectare in the city center, and that's the highest density. And the headline is Orientation souhaitée pour le TOD. So I'm really quite mystified. Where is the law? Can you please put it up on the screen, or at least
Monsieur
provide a
No,
reference?
est-ce que vous avez plus de détails sur ça?
Well, we can sure send you the link, of course. What is important to know about this draft version, the first version that was effectively adopted on June 9, is that it's a draft, and to be very honest with you, a few municipalities have pointed irregularities in this first draft. What I can ensure you, and this is documented, of course, and it's been always this threshold, the 480 units by hectare is what is required for a NAGPR center. That includes Atwater. So I'm not sure if you're referring to the actual or the new PMAD in what you have in your hands, but what is related to the new version, I can ensure you that this is the true new requirement.
I would be mystified to imagine that a document produced by the CMM this year, 2025, stating for the worst case scenario, which is the center of Montreal, up to 150 minimum, and that has jumped to 480. That is really just clearly unimaginable. Remember, in 2012, and again, it was a desire, not a requirement, the PMAD was for 40 to 80 dwellings per hectare in a TOD, transit-oriented development, I think it is. So, please show me that law, even if it's a draft law. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, if you give me your email after, I will send the link to you.
Henry@olders.ca.
Okay.
Yeah,
Merci.
you can all send me something, by all means. So now, I do have a question other than that comment. Suppose that developers take up, and it's not the plan that's important right now, it's the bylaws, because they give permission for developers to actually make demands on the city once the bylaws are passed, which the city would have a hard time defending against if we didn't like what the developer was proposing. So these important changes to the bylaws, that for me is what is problematic, because it's the provincial government that permits this, but basically it's bypassing the normal rules of a city democracy whereby people can ultimately even vote on a zoning change, and that's all disappeared with this set of bylaws that you are passing. So I see that as a problem. Also, I see...
No, so we can clarify that, but it's the PPU is a planning tool. I think to indicate that we're bypassing democracy or anything as we sit here in an umpteenth public consultation is not a fair...
It's not the planning, it's the bylaws that you're planning to pass. The enabling bylaws, because under the guidance of the PPU, which is a provincial law, you can make changes, and you have in those bylaws, which will not require the process used to be, up until this business, that if you wanted a zoning change, then the people in the zone and the contiguous zones would have the opportunity to sign a register.
And to
If you
stop.
had enough signatures, then it would go to a referendum. That has disappeared with this process.
I think Councillor Aronson would like to comment, and then we're going to move on to the two final comments and questions.
Okay, so Mr. Alders, I understand. I think I understand the confusion. So the rules have always been that if there is a specific set of bylaws attached to a specific zone, and a project comes forward that wants to have some sort of variance to it, or a circumstance where there's going to be a change to that specific zone that's been requested or put forward by a council, then if there are enough people in some surrounding zones who object to it, they can force a referendum. And that is still the rule. Hold on, let me finish what I'm saying. Okay, that's still the rule.
Go on.
Except in a situation like this tool, this special planning project, which allows a council to reset the zoning for a larger area, not a specific zone, like one building or one block, but a specific identified zone. And instead of requiring a referendum that if you applied the same kind of logic to it, you'd need a referendum that would encompass the entire population of the city because the zone is so huge, right? So instead, the province has provided a mechanism by which the municipal council can engage in an incredibly long and intensive public consultation process to develop a new set of zoning bylaws. That's what we're doing right now. Once these are in place, if there is a change that is needed because somebody comes with a non-conforming project and it's asked for something to be altered through the PPC law process, or a future council says, you know what, we're gonna rejig this one area or that one area, the opportunity for a citizen-led referendum will still exist. It hasn't gone away, but it doesn't apply to this specific type of program that we're doing now because we're doing an entire reset of a vision of a greater zone. So this is a new tool that the provincial government has given municipalities, but it does not mean that going forward, for forever and ever, any kind of zoning change in Westmount doesn't allow for the traditional register of objections and referendum mechanism. I hope that makes this more clear.
Merci.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that a small change would possibly require a referendum, but a huge, massive change like this one doesn't require a referendum.
That's exactly right.
That's a very cavalier attitude towards democracy
and
on the part of council, I think.
So provincial law.
Yeah. So, Mr.
The
reason
our provincial government has a good track record of encouraging democracy.
Well, they were. I mean, listen.
Okay.
Many of us have issues with some of the things our provincial government has done, but we recognize that they have been elected through a democratic process, and there will be an election in 2026 where we're going to test to see whether or not they've done a good job. But in the meantime, they have passed sets of laws to deal with the problems that they have been presented, and they have allowed for a mechanism by which we and other municipalities can look at a long-standing systemic issue and have a tool to address it. And that's what we've been doing in an open, transparent, and democratic way. That's why we're all here and why we're engaging in this conversation to begin with.
Thank you, Councillor Aronson. And we're going to move on to the next final two questions or comments in the room.
Good evening, Council. My name is Sebastian Highlands. I'm president of Kevrick. For context, we are one of the owners and we are the developer that actually transforms the 1100 Atwater building that is at the intersection of Atwater and Dorchester all the way to Tupper. I do want to support this vision and this plan this evening because I have revitalized, or our team, excuse me, have done a piece of revitalization in this area in the current framework that we have to operate with. And I can tell you the current framework does not work to actually allow for a revitalization that is coordinated and actually achieves towards a vision, which I think everybody in Westmount does support. And that vision would actually allow to address the multiple issues that are in that area, which are social, around housing, around homelessness, around security, and I can go on and on about this. What I could tell you is we were just making an office building allowed to be an office building in that area. And yes, we did have to go through public consultations. We even tried to improve the urban realm around our building, and we were blocked from doing it because the current framework does not allow you to try to actually, you know what, bring something forward, because everything is up for debate and actually goes endlessly to actually bring change. So it is important for this to happen because this allows projects to be brought forward. It allows the CCU, who are actually all professionals that actually look at these projects, actually look at what the objectives of the city are, which are to have great architecture, to have great public realm, to actually build great livable areas for the whole community that represent Westmount. And this plan here will actually allow developers and landowners around here to bring forward great projects. And again, I say that from the point of view that that's exactly what we've done in this area. That's exactly what we want to keep doing in this area. And this kind of tool is going to allow property owners to do exactly that. So I would strongly urge you to actually support this vision. It will create a lasting and generational impact in this area of Westmount. Thank you.
So I guess it wasn't really a question, more of a comment, but I would say I applaud you for the work that you did on that building at that corner, and that you have dramatically improved that entranceway into Westmount. And it is a much, I mean, it's a beautiful building. So
bravo.
Thank you. The last word.
My name is Jonathan Wiener. I am a private developer. The company is Canderel. I have no interest in this area other than as a occupant on Green Avenue, and a real interest in seeing the neighborhood improve. I've given a lot of thought to the plan that was tabled. I think there, like any plan, there are good things and there are some things that need to be rethought and perhaps to allow the plan to mature. And what I'd like to propose tonight is something that I think deals with all of the issues at hand. I listened to a lot of the comments, and a lot of the comments don't address the real issues. The properties on St. Catherine Street have no views. Up to 7 stories, 0. I looked at this property 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and I think I have said to the mayor on many occasions, this is not a viable area to develop. We are going to continue to see what we see on St. Catherine because nobody's going to pick up the opportunity given what's there. So my feeling is that height is unfortunately necessary in order to have an economic return for somebody to build the project. Think about what's behind, think about what's in front, think about what's beside. There is nothing that's encouraging to an occupant to want to, whether it's office, residential, the only thing might be retirement or assisted living because they don't need a view, they need a space. And that's on the lower floors. I think there's lots of opportunity in the back on Dorchester to do some very elegant things. I would suggest to the city they spend more time thinking about the uses, the heights, and the proportions, and talk to the potential users. So if it's retirement housing or affordable housing, what works? Because it's nice to have a theoretical plan, but if it doesn't work economically, it's not going to happen. And I think more time is needed, and you're in full control because it's your land, your streets, your assembly. You don't need developers to tell you what to do. Parking, I can tell you across this country, and we're in Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver, parking is a dead issue.
A dead issue.
It's a dead issue in the sense that People are not picking up the parking that's available. We're down to as low as 0.4 density on parking in various zones across the country because of affordability. Parking, because of the costs on earthquake and other things, have gone from $35, $40 a square foot 20 years ago to over $200 a square foot to build parking. So it's no longer become affordable. At $150,000 a stall, do the numbers, it doesn't work. And so we want to minimize parking, and we have mass transit, and you can get on the metro and get downtown or almost virtually any part of the city with REM. And we have sites downtown that we may have no parking. I was in charge of all of the real estate development for Concordia. We put no parking in all of our new buildings, 0, and it's working just fine. So let me come to the plan that I would suggest to you. I believe there are 4 owners on St. Catherine, and the LeMay plan had 4 towers, if I'm correct, on St. Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's wrong. I think it's too much mass on St. Catherine. It's not enough lateral light coming through to the pedestrians on St. Catherine. What I would propose is 24-foot high retail, as you see in Laval off Boulevard Saint-Martin. Allow the retailers to have a ground floor plus mezzanine, and let it be highly commercialized on St. Catherine. You don't need green spaces on St. Catherine, you need green spaces on Dorchester. Go high density, go 25 or 30 stories, but only 2. It will require a plan intégré, or what's otherwise known as a plan d'ensemble, which allows a project of scale to be done that will be economic, because without that height, you cannot limit it to 2 towers, because
You're saying 2 towers at 20 is not feasible.
I don't think 20 will do it. I did the numbers. I think you need 25 to 30, but I say small floor plate. Not a gargantuan floor plate, 20 or 25,000 feet. 8, 10, 12,000 maximum per tower. 2 towers only, with lots of space in between them. It means that, and you leave the zoning as is if people aren't prepared to cooperate, and you give them
the private owners.
You give them the bonus by getting together to either partner, to sell to another party who will plan the entire area. By putting the rights in place, it will happen. Whether it happens with the current 4 owners or other owners to come to the table, it will happen. Do not take the attitude that because right now there's no need or no desire for developers to build any residential, that won't change 5 seconds after the government in Ottawa changes the motivation.
Yeah.
And you won't be ready if you don't have the plan in place today. Because by your very nature, and I have built in Westmount, so I know what it is like to go through the rigors of the Good Taste Committee. You need to have the plan in place so when the market is there, it can happen. It won't happen tomorrow morning, but it could happen the week after.
Change is happening fast in Ottawa.
When we were last like this, and it goes back to the MERB era, when the Canadian government put in all kinds of incentives to get affordable housing. Understand that the word affordable housing is mostly caused by municipal, provincial, and federal governments and all the impositions that they have put on the back of developers that they can no longer pass through to the client or the customer because they won't take it and they can't afford it. So you use the word affordable very freely, but in fact, all 3 levels of government now account for 35% of inputs in project cost. During that same period, and it's only over the last 4 or 5 years, developer profits have gone to half. Developers don't want to invest at those margins because it's not worth it.
Apologies.
And that's why you have the lull that you have now.
My apologies, sir. We have to wrap up. It's another.
Do you have anything else that you want to add, Mr. Wiener? I'm happy to hear it, as you know.
I'm sorry?
I'm happy, if you have more to add, I'm happy to hear it.
I think that the thing that's most important, the critical thing right now for Westmount is what's happened on St. Catherine. I do not enjoy, I'm sure most of the people here don't enjoy feeling like they're living in a slum, and that's what the south side of St. Catherine looks like. I congratulate you for taking the initiative. I support you in taking the initiative. I think it requires a slightly different approach to get something that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your feedback. So thank you, everybody. This is, we're coming up on close to 4 hours. So for those of you who have stayed in the room and for those who have left already, I just want to thank you for participating in this. And as I had said before, this is not a vote. There is no vote that's being taken tonight. But we heard some excellent feedback. We heard some excellent suggestions that we will discuss internally. And stay tuned, and you're welcome to communicate with us. I know I've been given some paper versions of this, and some of you have emailed your briefs, your commentary to council. I encourage you to write it to all of council, not just to me. But if you do write it just to me, our office will share it with all of council. But I do really appreciate the time that you have taken. So, est-ce qu'il y a d'autres choses? D'autres commentaires? Anyone? No?
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.